And so he's exactly right. They ain't Alabama, they ain't LSU, and they're certainly not Clemson. And, that's why Carolina's in Chapel Hill and USC's in California. And the university in this state always has been, always will be Clemson. And it's right here in Clemson, South Carolina. So you can print that, tweet that.
Let's go, Diesel. Let's go.
Tweet that.
Tweet that. That was back when, we were just learning what the word tweet meant. But I don't care what side. I don't care what side of the fan base you're on this weekend. If that doesn't just fire you up, get you ready, get you motivated. Hey, it either upsets you or get you ready to run through a brick wall.
Yeah.
Dabo Swinney, circa, 2010, 11 maybe, long time ago. You can even tell in his voice. It was a younger Dabo, right? Gamecock fans, do you like that? Do you remember that? Does that get you fired up?
That Dabo would have got crazy and cracked open a White Claw or something just to let loose.
That Dabo would have spelt NIL in all caps and attacked NIL, right? Not to go down that rabbit trail. However, Dabo Swinney, man, I tell you what, that was an all-time classic line, whether you love it or you hate it, whether you love him or hate him. That was one of those that's going to be around for a long, long time. Just what you call audio gold, Diesel. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He is Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. It's Rivalry Week. It's Rivalry Week, Diesel. Put all of the statistics aside. I'm telling you, man, I'm fired up. I'm fired up. On Saturday, we might have one of the most anticipated college football games between South Carolina and Clemson that we have had in a very long time. We'll know tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, but potentially a top 15 matchup. This is going to be big, man. This is going to be fun, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, this is the week that everybody in the state waits for. I mean, think about this, Cole. We were looking at this just a week ago saying that, man, this game really doesn't have any playoff implications on the line. This is kind of it for both of these teams. Afterwards, both of them are going to go off to a crappy bowl game, the cereal bowl and the toilet bowl. Now, everybody ahead of them lost. I mean, if one fewer team lost than actually lost, we're still in the same boat. But here we are with real-time playoff implications on the line. I mean, you said it. Is this the biggest rivalry game these two teams have ever played? They're all huge, but this one has just that little something extra on it.
It has something extra, and I hate to be this guy. I really do. But, boy, what this game Saturday would mean if Clemson would have beat Louisville and South Carolina would have beat Alabama or LSU. You talk about the goosebumps you have now.
Well,
add in that Diesel, and we're talking about a big-time game.
Well, here's the thing, Cole. I'm gonna actually say that you're wrong there.
Oh!
Because if Clemson and South Carolina had won those two games that you're talking about, this game would theoretically mean less. Because it would just be for seeding, because both of those teams would be in the college football playoff.
I don't know if the loser would, though. It'd be tough. The bubble conversation, and you said a minute ago. Bubble boy. So many teams lost over the weekend. All of a sudden, this game means more than you said it normally does. And, boy, that's fun. It's going to be a lot of fun on Saturday. JB's in the stream on YouTube. He says, Tolo, go Gamecocks. That stands for turn on, leave on. That's what we ask you to do right here on the Fan Upstate. He also says classic. That's when Coach Spurrier said the real Death Valley was in Baton Rouge and pissed off Dabo. Ricky on the Facebook stream says, high noon Saturday. It's on like Donkey Kong. I can't wait. Ricky, I'm excited. Diesel, what is very, very fun about this matchup is that for once in a long, long time, and I know South Carolina won 2 years ago, it feels like we're actually able to talk about a coin flip game. Clemson dominated this rivalry, and let's just call a spade a spade. When Clemson's winning 5-6 in a row, the rivalry's not as fun. I know Clemson fans like dominating, and I get that. But this rivalry is so much more fun when both teams are good.
You realize you've just set off a chain of events that's going to lead to a lot of Gamecock fans having carpal tunnel in their thumbs. Because when you just said it's not as fun when Clemson is winning 5 or 6 in a row. They all grabbed their phones and started texting. Yeah, but Cole,
True.
South Carolina actually won 5 in a row.
They did, and I get it. Like the fan base is on the winning side of things. It's fantastic. It's it feels good to be the dad to little bro. However,
wouldn't you be the big bro to little bro?
Well, that's true. That makes sense.
The father to the son.
Big brother. You're right. Father to the son. Big brother to little brother. You're right. However, for you and I in the media, the anticipation that's leading up to it is so much more entertaining because we truly don't know what's going to happen, Diesel. 2.5 points right now is what ESPN.com has this game at. Now,
and that's basically home field advantage.
You're right. That's where I was going. I want to say this. ESPN.com has Clemson favored by 2.5 points. Now, according to Vegas, South Carolina, because of this, Diesel, is actually favored by 0.5 point. If you do the math here, Clemson minus 2.5, you get 3 for home field advantage, you just said. So if you take 3 away from 2.5, Vegas actually thinks South Carolina may be the favorite by 0.5 point, but Clemson gets those 3 points because it's at Clemson. So really, this is as close to a pick'em as we've seen in a very long time.
Have we ever gotten confirmation that Las Vegas actually
does
that?
They do.
So we know that for sure.
For sure.
Okay. I didn't know if that was like some urban legend.
No, they do.
That exists, that the 3 points for home field advantage actually exists because, I mean, there's a lot of schools out there that have no home field advantage.
Well, that's true.
I mean, look around the ACC, right? There's going to be a lot of games where the visiting colors outweigh the home team colors. God, and speaking of which, I don't want to get us off script here.
Yeah.
But looking at those wide angle shots of Bank of America Stadium yesterday, Carolina Panthers fans should be damn disgusted.
A lot of red.
A lot of red.
I thought it was
like
America Day.
75% red. And some of the blue that you saw was actually the blue chairs.
The seats.
Yeah, there's actually not a body in those seats, but it looks like there is because it's blue.
Thank God for the blue seats, right? T Swizzle in the YouTube stream says, wasn't there a few people in here that said no shot Clemson has a chance to make the college football playoff? Eat those words, all caps. Ricky says Connor Shaw never lost to Clemson. You're right. And Ricky, Taj Boyd never beat South Carolina during that same period of time. Wesley says, welcome back, Gamecocks. It's fun to have a good game around Thanksgiving every once in a while. So I can see the sarcastic. I can pick up on the sarcastic tone. Look, every once in a while.
The schedulers, whoever put this game together, whoever decided this was going to be a noon game, they've had enough of this being a completely lopsided rivalry that has no real implications. Keep this going. Have both of these teams in contention again next year. That's how you get a primetime game.
Hey,
it should have been a primetime game. And, I tweeted out on Saturday after all those teams went down that Clemson and South Carolina should be able to steal game day away. I don't know if they can change their minds now. I know they had pre-announced that they were going to Texas A&M, and I get it. That's a rivalry renewed that we haven't had for a really, really long time. But, I mean, come on. After A&M got beat, they should really be headed to Clemson.
I'm with you. I agree with you. Now, Diesel, to your point about the game time, you know who's to blame for the noon kick? One person's to blame. Dabo Swinney.
He's got to go to bed
at
a normal time?
No. We could have had a Friday night game. Remember? They proposed a Friday night after Thanksgiving. Dabo said no. So, hey, if you're upset about the noon kick, blame Dabo Swinney. You could be playing Friday night in prime time.
At the very least, Dabo Swinney is consistent. He is a traditionalist who never wants to change things. If that's the case, Cole, why aren't they kicking off at 1:30?
Would you rather Clemson fans play at noon Saturday or Friday night? Noon Saturday or Friday night? That might be a good poll question on our Twitter page, Diesel, because they want a night game at Death Valley. The environment's a lot better at night, right? At noon, still waking up, still fighting off those yawns. So I don't know. That's a good question. Would you rather play on Friday night than noon? I think some Clemson fans may.
I'm glad that Mike Jones brought up this debate. It also teases what we're going to talk about in the very next segment, Mike. But he says Clemson may have a shot to get in, but they have absolutely no business getting in. 0 ranked wins. That's ridiculous.
No, he said that about Clemson.
Yeah, he said that about Clemson.
Okay.
And, Mike, I'm glad you brought that up because there's a hell of a lot of SEC teams who are currently sitting inside the top 10 who have the exact same number of ranked wins.
Yeah.
Who have the exact same number of ranked wins. So I'm going to punch a hole.
Like Texas?
In this, yes, like Texas. I'm going to punch a hole in this whole narrative that the SEC is just better, that they deserve 6 playoff spots, yada, 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 yada. Look, this is a year of chaos, and I love it. I love it as a G5 fan. I love that the very first year that this playoff has moved to 12, we've got so much parity. Parity is fun, guys. Remember, parity is supposed to be fun. Unpredictability is fun. Chaos is fun. Like if it is what Dabo Sweeney said it was, Colin, I've got this little piece of audio here for you. If it is what Dabo Sweeney said it was ahead of the games, Saturday morning, then it wouldn't be any actual fun.
We've scheduled tough, and all you can do is play the schedule that you have. It is what it is, but we basically have an SEC Big Ten Invitational.
No, we don't. No, we don't, Dabo. And I know. Saturday morning at 9 a.m. when you did that hit, that's exactly what it looked like, and then all hell broke loose.
It did. It really did.
I love this.
So, Diesel, I want to poll the audience in this very first segment. And by the way, Kevin said Friday night is for high school sports in this state, and Dabo Sweeney did make that clear. But I want to poll the audience as we talk about this South Carolina Clemson game for the first time this week. Very simple question. Very simple. On this week of Thanksgiving on a Monday at 3:15 almost, regardless of who you pull for, I want to hear from you on the stream as well as on the text line 71307. Phone lines are open as well, 844-326-3663. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Regardless of if you're a Clemson fan, regardless, Diesel, if you're a South Carolina fan, what's your gut telling you? How are you feeling about Saturday? Early in the week, what's your early lean? If you're on the outside, if you're not a Clemson fan, if you're not a South Carolina fan, what do you think? How are you feeling? But I want to hear specifically from the fans in this game on Saturday. What's your gut telling you? What are the things you feel best about? What are the things you are most concerned about? Diesel and I do a segment called Green Flag, Red Flag a lot. We did it earlier in the year. What are your green flags? What are the red flags for your team going into this game? Diesel, if South Carolina wins, it's a big win. You mentioned the playoff bubble a minute ago. Mm-hmm. And if Gamecocks win Saturday, they'll have won 2 out of 3, 2 in a row at Clemson Stadium, at Memorial Stadium. That'll be a big win. And then the second part of that is, we tease this, where does the winner find themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Does the winner, regardless of if it's Clemson or South Carolina, have a legit shot to make the playoffs? I think that regardless of who wins, there's an argument because of because of the so many teams that lost this weekend.
Yeah, there's an argument for it. I mean, if you're going off of, and this is the only information we have until 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, right? If you're going off of what the AP voters have said, South Carolina being at number 16 in this week's brand new AP poll. Number one, that's disrespectful as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, Clemson and South Carolina both played relatively the same caliber opponent on Saturday. Clemson mollywops Citadel, and they move up 5 spots.
Sure.
South Carolina absolutely blasts Wofford, and they only move up 3 spots, which is absolutely ludicrous.
You know what I think it is?
Absolutely ludicrous.
I think it's the teams, because I looked at that. I saw your tweet about that. I think it's the teams. I think South Carolina is falling victims to their losses.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Sitting right in front of them is Ole Miss.
And Bama.
Yeah, and they didn't look good. I mean, maybe this is an argument we could have if South Carolina had kept it within a touchdown of Ole Miss or kept it within 10 points of Ole Miss and still lost the game.
Mm-hmm.
Would they now be ranked higher than Ole Miss considering they both have 3 losses? You know, South Carolina looks better right now than Ole Miss does. Would you have South Carolina jump Ole Miss? And I think you'd have a hard time arguing why that shouldn't be the case.
Well, you'd be weighing what matters more now, like recency bias versus what happened, because that feels like a long time ago. That game does.
Wins and losses do have to matter, right? But also, I think how you're playing right now should also come into play.
No,
so, if you want to compare head to head, I think you can certainly look at it and focus on it, but you should also view it through the prism of, well, that game was, in week number 4 or in week number 5. A lot has changed since week number 4 or 5. If that was the case, Cole, you could never rank a team ahead of a team that they lost to. So, I mean, just for the sake of argument, Alabama could have gone on a 6-game losing streak after they played South Carolina, but you just can't rank South Carolina ahead of Alabama because they lost to them before that losing. So like those things have to be viewed through a prism, like, right? That's honestly why we need the computers involved more heavily than they currently are.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
To take away some of those biases to show you who's playing better right now, but you got to view it through the prism of head-to-head wins and losses have to matter.
All right, let's look on the YouTube stream, Facebook, and Twitter, where the chat right now is going nuts. A lot of it's happening on YouTube, a lot of back and forth on the YouTube chat. Kevin says on Facebook, Saturday's fine. We're okay with a noon game Saturday. Dabo's already playing the no respect card. T Swizzle says if we can slow down Sellers, it's a wrap. Mike, that's a wrap. That's a big word.
It's a wrap?
I don't know about that.
I mean, which element? Okay, like Sellers is doing a fine job throwing the ball right now. He's running the ball at a fantastic clip. So are you saying slow him down in just the run game? Because I don't think you're going to be able to eliminate both.
It'd be impressive if you did.
Yeah,
but I don't
right?
know that. Mike says SEC is not weak at all, but it's crazy. Teams with no ranked wins are getting a chance to get in. JB says, Cole, I'm saying Carolina wins 31-20. An 11-point win is what JB is calling for on Saturday. T Swizzle says put a spy on Sellers and they're in trouble. Brian says I'm a little nervous about the game. Mine the kicking team. Oh, you're talking is Brian a Clemson or a Carolina guy?
So you telling me that nobody has put a spy on Lenore Sellers the last couple of weeks? Like nobody has thought to do that? Never occurred to a defensive coordinator put a spy on that guy? I mean, I'd have to go back and watch the games to find out, but
it's going to be tough. I mean, it's easier said than done.
You can't pretend like it hasn't happened, like nobody has thought of it. That's clearly the first thing you think of when you're trying to slow down this offense.
Madcraft says, gonna be a fun week, Cole. Let's see. JD, Tolo, baby. It's hate week, but I got nothing but love. Let's see what happens on the field. JD loves. Yeah, I mean, we all need love, but that's not fun this time of year.
JD loves Clemson. Is that what he's saying?
Oh.
Is JD one of those Tolos that likes both Clemson and South Carolina now?
That'll get him fired up. JD's throwing in the love. Hey, I'm all for love, JD, but not this week. Not this week.
God, now they're going at each other over fantasy wins and losses.
Because, Diesel, there was no love in this clip that I played to open the show. There's no love here.
And so he's exactly right. They ain't Alabama, they ain't LSU, and they're certainly not Clemson. And, that's why Carolina's in Chapel Hill and USC's in California. And the university in this state always has been, always will be, Clemson. And it's right here in Clemson, South Carolina. So you can print that, tweet that.
Yeah, okay.
Print that. Tweet that.
Dabo Cousins or Kirk Sweeney. You like that. You like that.
That's so great, man. That's so great.
When we come back, Cole, the SEC bubble got burst over the weekend. Got burst.
And Diesel's going to tell you about the Upstate Warrior Icon program. If you haven't heard us talking about that, Diesel's going to tell you about that as well.
That's next. SEC, you ain't all that in a bag of potato chips. I can promise you that. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Cole, we have this narrative. We hear this narrative every year that the SEC is head and shoulders better than everyone else, right? They're it's just a better brand of football. They got more money. They got more this. They got more of that. This year, it's not necessarily true.
Oh, come on.
When you look at the 20 teams who are sitting right now in the top 20, when you look at how many wins they have over good quality opponents, especially when you look at the ones at the tippy top, Cole, it's not really painting a great picture for the SEC. Now, I'm not going to tell you in this break. I'm not Danny Cannell. I'm not going to tell you that the SEC sucks. I certainly
was about to ask
that.
what conference was paying you today. Paying you off.
I'm not going to tell you that the SEC sucks. But what I am going to tell you is that the current standard bearer for the SEC just got here, by the way. Texas has exactly 0 wins inside the top 25.
Ooh.
And it's not, it doesn't paint the picture that you think it does. Look, I understand that Georgia has looked really good at times this year and has also looked really bad at times this year. I understand that Alabama has 4 ranked wins, but Georgia also has a couple of losses. So I think, oddly enough, Cole, Georgia and Alabama might be the best 2 teams in the SEC. Might be, because they both have the most. If you want to look at it strictly, like you look down one column on a stat sheet, you could say Georgia and Alabama have the same number of ranked wins as basically the rest of the SEC combined.
So I'm going to disagree with you here. I think that there are a lot of points you made that are fair. However, this is the best conference in football beating up on each other. There's no conference, and I know you look at the top 5, right? You see some parity there. And hey, I'm for parity. I love parity in college football. I think it's a great thing. However, I think the SEC is so deep, that's why you're seeing them beat up on each other.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
Arkansas has beaten SEC teams this year. There's not a conference in football that can touch the SEC. There's not a conference that's as deep as the SEC, Diesel. I don't even think it's close when you talk about the depth in the conference. I don't think it's close.
Look, I know that they have 12 total top 25 wins, and I know that's more than any other conference. I get it. But what I'm telling you is the best teams in this conference who play the best, who win the big games, I think they win those big games, Cole, because they have experience playing in those big games. Georgia has experience playing in the big games. And when you get that SEC bias and benefit of the doubt, they basically rank everybody. I mean, come on, even Vandy was ranked at one point this year. You have more opportunities to get ranked wins. It doesn't necessarily make you a better conference.
I just think when you look at the totality of the conference with the number of recruits they have, the talent that's inside the conference, and I know Vandy's kind of a wild card this year. Like, we probably, in my opinion, won't see Vandy this good in a long time. Maybe NIL and maybe transfer portal changes things. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Vandy does keep some consistency. I just think when you look at the parity inside the conference, especially what happened this weekend, Auburn beating A&M.
So is it okay? Did Auburn suddenly become a better football team, or is A&M just not as good as we thought?
No, I just think that in the SEC on any given day, if you don't bring your A game, you can get embarrassed.
So nobody is that much better than anybody else.
I think there's parity this conference, but
you can't say that every team is great. So any team can beat anybody.
I've never said every team's great. Never said that. I just think that you look at the conference depth. When you have good depth, you have upsets. If you have no depth, you have Bama being at the top every year.
Yeah, but great teams don't get upset.
Well, I'm not saying
great teams don't get upset. And that's the point I'm making right there. There are no great teams in the SEC.
Okay, I'm fair with that. I'm good with that. I'm on board with that.
There's good teams.
Yeah.
There's good teams. There's no great teams.
I can get on board with no great teams, but I can't get on board with there being a better conference.
Yeah,
a deeper conference.
I've had enough with the deriding of so many people who just gas up the SEC like it's God's gift to football every single year. Again, Madcraft was like, finish him, right? He was waiting for me to dunk on the SEC hard. Madcraft, the ACC is not that good either, right? Clemson is the only team that has a ranked win.
But what's the deeper conference, though, than the SEC? There's no deeper conference.
So you're trying. We're arguing two different points right here. I'm arguing that the SEC is not as good as the hype makes them out to be. You're arguing that the SEC is the tallest midget. Okay, that they are.
I wouldn't consider them
the best
midget,
conference. That they are the best conference in football. And I'm not arguing.
I think using the word midget, though, like, I get your point, but I don't know, man. I just think I still think, even though they may be down this year.
But isn't that the definition of parity if everybody is relatively the same height?
The definition of parity
is everybody is when there's relatively equal.
Well, I think that exists when you have NIL and transfer portal enabling teams to get more talent in better ways. I mean, I think the portal and NIL has created a lot of the parity in the SEC. Look at Vandy. What is Vandy this year without the portal and NIL? And I don't think it's a bad thing that there's parity. I like parity in a conference. And I'll tell you this, from a viewer standpoint, Diesel, I like what I've seen from the SEC this year. It's fun. It's different. You don't have that Alabama beating up on everybody. But I won't go as far as to say that there's not the best conference, because while there may not be a great elite team out there, I still think they're far and away better, the better conference than any other conference in football.
What I've seen, especially from the SEC over this weekend, tells me, Cole, if they actually split this 12-team playoff among the other conferences, you'd see a lot of SEC upsets.
Sorry, say that again.
If they didn't do what Dabo Swinney claimed this tournament is, an SEC Big Ten Invitational, and which, by the way, that's not the first time anybody's ever said that. So we can't give Dabo the credit. People have been saying that for a while. Somebody a couple of years ago called it a brand power invitational, the 12-team playoff. What I'm saying is, Cole, if they mixed in a fair mix of ACC and Big 12 teams, I think you'd see a lot of SEC teams go down.
To ACC teams?
To the mix, to everybody.
Maybe Big Ten. I don't know if the ACC. I'm so disappointed in the ACC. I think it's terrible. I really do. And I know you have, Clemson and Miami, and SMU's had a good year. But SMU's their first year in the conference. And, the traditional power is the ACC.
Whoa. Okay, so you're knocking the ACC because SMU in their first year in this conference is about to win this thing. Why don't you knock the SEC because first year in the conference, Texas, who has no top 25 wins and has a strength of schedule of 38, is about to win this thing?
Because there's so many good teams in the SEC. It's not Texas's conference. Georgia,
it seems to be.
Texas.
It seems to be.
I think we'll see. I think we'll see when it's all said and done. I think there will be some teams that may go farther in the conference.
We got a lot of people who love to put goalposts on skates in the SEC. Every time you argue against something that is inarguably true, that the best team, quote unquote, best team in the SEC has no good wins, and a quote unquote middle of the pack SEC has 4 ranked wins, they just move the goalpost on it. Well, no, it's not that, it's this.
So look,
it's not that, it's this.
I can get with you that there may not be an elite team. I'm not pushing back with you on that. I just don't think that there's another conference that's relatively close.
So would you take right now, Cole, Big Ten of the field to win the national championship? Big Ten of the field.
Well, I said Ohio State was going to win at the beginning of the year. So I would have to take Big Ten if I'm going to stay true to my pick. And I do realistically, Diesel, I still think Ohio State can win it. I think they can. I think they're getting better and better. To me, they look really good on Saturday against Indiana. And I know Indiana, but we'll talk about that later, maybe wasn't the best team, maybe wasn't the best opponent for Ohio State in terms of matchups and how those two teams match up. I thought Ohio State looked good. So I'm happy as of now with my national championship pick. So if I had to answer that, I'd say Big Ten, just because I'm going to roll with the Buckeyes.
Because this right here, this conversation that we're having and that everybody's having on every sports radio show in the country today and has been having for the past 5 years, 10 years, this is the reason why we'll never go back to a BCS system.
Oh, no.
Because the college football playoff loves the fact that we all have these conversations year in and year out.
Sure.
They've turned the ranking system into a water cooler argument between buddies, right? And that's what makes it good. It makes it frustrating at the same time because, Nicole, if you just simply went by what the computer rankings said, well, then you got nowhere to argue because you could point to the computer rankings and say this stat, and this stat. These are the reasons why it is the way that it is. Yep. This is the reason why this team got in over that team. And then you say, oh, okay. You'd have a literal it is what it is conversation.
Let's go to the phones, 844 fan phone, 844-326-3663. Jonathan wants to chime in on the conversation. What's up, Jonathan?
Hello, guys. I just think we need to quit giving conferences so much credit and respect when we call it conferences, because these conferences or teams change year to year. We talk about recruits coming in, like you're talking about. SEC's got all the great recruits, but are they developing those recruits? Obviously, it's falling off this year, so because we've got Alabama falling down, Georgia losing. So there's no dominant, like y'all were saying earlier, there's no dominant team. So, and you're saying Ohio State's going to win. So why do we give conferences so much respect from year in and year out when that can go from year in and year out? That can change.
No, it can change.
And it's like the conversation, Jonathan, that we've had on the station a couple times about America's team, calling the Dallas Cowboys America's team. What have they done to earn that moniker? And why can't we change it every couple of years?
The SEC has won more national championships than anybody. I mean, they look
but
at
that doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter? Winning national championships?
No, why does that matter? Why does that matter every
it doesn't matter to this year.
You're going to have a difference. You can have a different champion every year.
So Jonathan, who's the best conference in college football? Who's the best conference in college football, Jonathan?
That's what I'm saying. You're saying conference.
Yeah.
Who's the best team in college football?
You could argue Oregon. You could argue Ohio State. You could argue Texas.
Correct. Are they in the SEC?
One of them is.
One of them. Okay, so why do we give the conferences that they won the year before, or they won 2 years before? Okay, but that doesn't mean they're going to win this year.
Do you believe, Jonathan,
so much credit?
If you stack the Big Ten up against the SEC and went team for team from 1 to 10, you think the Big Ten would hold its weight?
1 to 10?
That's an irrelevant conversation. No, yes, it is, because you don't get 20 teams into the college football playoff.
But y'all are saying the SEC is not the best conference,
Who cares
right?
what happens between 7 versus 7?
But that's depth. That's how these upsets happen.
So
that's
what?
how Auburn beats A&M. It's the best conference. And if you don't think so.
The best conference in college football right now, Cole, is the Big Ten.
No, it's the
SEC. They got 3 out of the top 4 teams in the rankings right now. That is the best conference in college football.
But that argument that you and Jonathan are making is irrelevant because at the end of the day, only one team can win it all. So, you just said my 7 through 10 don't matter. Well, your 2 through 4 don't matter if only one team can win it all. I'm just saying there's nobody deeper. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, if you're saying the SEC is the most dominant conference and you're basing it off of what, the past?
This year. When you look at
this year, but he just told you that the Big Ten was the better conference based on ranked wins and and other things, correct?
Based on what? What the Big Ten's better conference based on what?
Did he just say that it was because the Big Ten's got more ranked?
I mean,
more ranked.
The Big Ten's got 4 teams inside the top 10. The SEC only has 3.
Correct. That's what I was saying. So you're basing it off this year. So what makes them who's the best conference?
I still think the SEC is the best conference. And if you want to, Jonathan, for the next 10 years. All right, let's see over the next 10 years what conference put more national championships over the next 10 years. You want to?
I'm going to say it's probably going to be the SEC. I would go with you. I would agree with you. I would agree with that. But that doesn't mean – let's just say this. You're talking about the rankings. We're talking about rankings and how the SEC gets so much benefit. But it's benefit from the past.
And but you just said the next 10 years the SEC would win more.
I'm saying possibly. I said possibly.
Okay.
Because, like you said, you're saying the last 2 years, but I'm saying we have to stop giving so much credit to the past. When these teams and these players change year in and year out more now than ever before, but you can't base it off of just that. Off of the
Jonathan,
past,
giving a team too much credit from the past is exactly the reason why Notre Dame is always inside the top 10, even when they don't deserve to be.
I agree, and that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Hey, Jonathan, great stuff.
To the past too much.
Great stuff, Jonathan. Appreciate the call, man. All right, real quick before we do have to run, but let's get Brian in.
We might
real
blow
quick.
through our commercial
I'll
breaks here.
screw the commercials. Brian, you're on the line, buddy. What's up?
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey,
Good,
Brian.
man.
I was want to make a couple of comments. First, on your comment that who's going to win the most national championships in the next 10 years. Well, that's a simple answer. The conference that gets the most teams in. Statistically, if you have 4 teams every year in the playoff and another conference has 1 or 2, you're going to have more national champions because you got twice the number of teams competing for it.
That's true.
just a given.
Yeah.
But this is the other part. I don't even have a problem saying that the SEC top to bottom is probably the best conference. The problem I have is the hypocrisy. If Florida upsets Ole Miss, it's because the conference is tough. But if Purdue upsets Ohio State, it's because Purdue was overrated. And it's like that every single game between the SEC and every other conference in the country. Louisville, who is schizophrenic, sometimes they play fantastic. They beat Clemson. So every SEC fan is, well, the conference is overrated, Clemson's overrated. But when a terrible Oklahoma team dominates Alabama, well, now you see how tough the SEC is. It's you cannot have it both ways, guys. You can't have it both ways. You got to pick a way and stay with it because that is the definition of hypocrisy.
Can I ask one question? Hey, Brian, real quick.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes,
Do you think Louisville's a good football team?
I think on any given Saturday, they're a great football team. And also, on any given Saturday, they're not very good.
No, I'm with you there.
I
That's
think
fair. I like that. That's good. I like that. I'm
All
with
right,
you. Hey, thanks for the call, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
844-FAN phone. We have gone way over. But screw the commercials, Diesel, right?
I listened to a clip of Josh Pate doing exactly what Brian just talked about. He talked about Indiana sucking. Indiana's overrated. Indiana's not that good. But then he said, if Ohio State beats Indiana, then they get credit for beating Indiana. Which is it? Are they a good team or are they a bad team? And people will flip-flop depending on the narrative that they want to spout at that given moment.
I love it. Great stuff. Tolos, appreciate you as well. A lot of text, a lot of message on the stream we'll try to get to. We'll continue the conversation maybe next. Maybe get to Bryce Young. We'll see. You decide. That's next. One or two text, one or two messages, Diesel, to get to. Not many, just like a
Pages.
million.
Upon pages.
I don't even know where you start on the stream. Madcraft is with you and the caller. He says they're always beating up on each other. Why is this different? Take Carolina quality losses now. Bama and LSU both suck, and you beat Oklahoma, who beat Bama, who beat you. Let's see. He says the parity is showing in the entirety of college football. Let's see here. JD says ranked wins. That's a big negative. Madcraft says caller is spot on. Louisville would beat A&M, LSU, and Bama. Madcraft, I'm sorry, buddy. I can't agree with you
I don't
on
know about that. I think they could, but probably wouldn't.
Let's see on the text line. I know where was star on the text line.
And see, what's funny, Cole, is everybody who's coming at me on the text line. And by the way, texters, please sign your texts. I mean, we're happy to shout you out by name.
Yeah, we are.
Texter says Diesel's drunk, that I couldn't be more wrong, that I thought Diesel thought more people would agree with him today. He's blatantly wrong on this. You're all patently misunderstanding what I'm arguing. I'm not arguing that the SEC isn't good. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing that they're not head and shoulders above everybody this year, that the SEC narrative has not been shot to hell more times than it has this season.
Texter says hard to bash the SEC when they only get beat by each other more often than not. Let's see. Texter says the AP dropped Clemson 11 spots after the Georgia loss. Bama gets blew out and drops 3 spots. BS, says the texter. 203 says bad take, Diesel. Real bad take. SEC smokes the majority of every single conference. All right. 203. What the hell are you talking about? They win big games because they are experienced for the big games, because they play in big games more than other people. Let me find another text. That one got lost somewhere. I had to click on it. Sorry, texter. Texter says 419. The NFL says the SEC is better every draft by a wide margin. Texter 803. Who is a great team in college football this year that would walk the cake with the top of the SEC? The Big Ten, says one texter. I'm not sure exactly if he was answering that text or if that was the same person or not.
I think, Cole, like the truly only great team in college football this year might be Ohio State.
And Oregon.
And they're not head and shoulders above anybody right now. Oregon is a great team. They also needed a technicality and an illegal play, a play that they since legislated to beat Ohio State.
Texter says, let me know when another conference causes an earthquake. The Big Ten has beat up on inferior opponents.
So we're using Richter scale measurements, Texter, now?
Richter scale.
Because somebody who designed Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge used shoddy construction.
Is this the 5 o'clock fight, Diesel? Because I'm winning every one.
You tell me shoddy construction in Baton Rouge is the reason why they're a better conference? Get out of here, dude.
803 says Diesel really thought more people would agree with him today on his SEC outlook. Blatantly wrong. Texter says Diesel could not be more wrong. I'm trying to find one that's agreeing with you, but
Madcraft agreed.
Madcraft did. So you are you do have Madcraft. Texter says Diesel drunk. I don't think he is. I really
no.
My
last drink was at like 9 o'clock last night.
Texter says Diesel, you got to stop, bud. You're wrong, completely wrong. Let's see here. Texter says once again they still only have 8 conference games. The mighty SEC would have half their league with another loss. John Doll, Cole wins the 5 o'clock fight no matter what. SEC's the best. No 5 o'clock fight today. Overreaction Monday. Buckeye Mike says, come up north and play a big schedule with 9 conference games. Come on up, says Buckeye Mike. Texter from the 474 Diesel. First of all, Cole is right. The SEC's the best. Second, this show is much better than the previous one. Well, thank you, Texter. It's fun. It's fun to debate, right? Let's see. UNC's the 12th in the ACC, gave up 70 points at home to James Madison. Vandy's the 12th in the SEC, beat Bama, and was briefly ranked. ACC is garbage. Let's see. Texter, I know y'all joke about the listeners not getting their picks in, but we had to put our family dog of 14 years down on Wednesday. Oh, no. That's terrible. Who is that?
Coach AJ.
Oh, man.
And Bonefish Girl.
Hate to hear that. 14 years old. I hate that. Man.
That's terrible.
That's sad.
That's terrible. Just so you know, we're going to get into this a little bit later on in the show, but actually we're going to get to it next. how we're going to handle the upset picks challenge this week.
I like it.
When things are a little different, when the schedule is a little different. So hang on. I'm going to reveal all of that on the other side of the break right here on the Fan Upstate. Hot off the presses, Tolos. Your week number 13 upset picks contest brought to you by Ingles. Standings are here. You can go check out the full standings at the Fan Upstate on Twitter.
No, the full's not necessary.
Well, no, it's worth mentioning, Cole, that you have
That's what I'm saying.
There 10 points. 10
not
points.
necessary to look at the full.
So it's possible, Cole, that you could end the season at like 6.
Yes, bad.
It's possible. Not a ton of movement in the very tippy top of the upset picks standings. However, except to mention, Cole, that Jake Crane, who was seemingly left for dead a couple of weeks ago, has now vaulted himself all the way up to 4th place in this challenge. Noel still sits at number 1 with 68.5 points. He must have hit big this week.
Who did Jake Crane hit on this week?
I don't remember who he picked. Jake Crane, you asked me that question.
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. It must have been a big one.
Jake Crane.
Because you're right. He was kind of medium, middle of the pack.
Jake Crane took, I believe, UAB.
Oh, wow.
Jake Crane took UAB to get his upset pick this week.
I'm surprised he didn't take Auburn.
No, he
over
didn't.
A&M.
That's his team, they are Auburn fans. His brother Blaine and David Cohn.
He would have hit.
He would have hit.
Yeah, he did hit. I'm sorry.
David Cohn, who, by the way, played quarterback at Michigan, who was on the Michigan team that App State beat in 2007. Wow. Neither here nor there. T-Ray is in 5th place with 48.5 points. Reed Atkins has 46.5 points, as does Joe D and Clemson Oculus. Justin L has 46, and Billy Horn rounds out the top 10 with 43 points. We had some big-time movement, Cole, in the middle of the pack here. Let's see. Clemson Jeff has hit on 3 picks in a row. Congratulations to him. We had 12 correct picks overall. 5 Tolos fell off the board. And Boomer Bill, who took the homer pick, his Oklahoma Sooners, plus 13.5 over Alabama. Boomer Bill has jumped from 92nd to 40th place.
Wow, what a jump.
Wow.
Just again, from one pick?
From one pick. Yeah. Oklahoma over Alabama. Not a lot of people got their upset picks right this week. Only 12 weekend. Tolos did. Cole, I mean, see that right there should give you hope. That should give you hope because you all the way back there in
thanks a lot.
74th place. See, you're not as down bad as Boomer Bill was. Boomer Bill was way worse.
But the problem is Diesel Boomer Bill hit. I don't hit.
I'm just saying there's a chance. I'm saying there's a chance. You're tied with Pat McAfee, so feel good about that.
Oh, really?
Mr. Belt Buckle himself, Pat McAfee. You both have 10 points. So, Cole, you could hit on a big old pick this week for if you took a 15-point pick spread, you'd be at 25-ish points.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's always a chance. And that's what I've been trying to tell you, Tolos, who inevitably some of you fall off over the course of the challenge. Not everybody picks all 14 weeks, the conference championship games and the bowl games, which next year we're hoping to have a prize for like an Ironman, somebody who picks every single week and make it worthwhile for you to be in here and do this. But Coley, I'm trying to tell you, you always have a chance. Okay. I mean, if you have 0 points like Dan B does, Dan B still has 0 points. Dan B could take a 15-point pick, Cole, and go from not even on the board to like 50th place. And that doesn't seem like a lot because we got 112 Tolos in here.
Noel on the Facebook stream says, follow my pick this week and you'll move up for sure, Cole.
No, this will be the one week that Noel doesn't hit. No, what color is your DeLorean? What color is your DeLorean? You're going back in the past and you're going into the future and you're looking to see who's going to win these games because you have been on a friggin' roll, Noel, that I've never seen before.
He's done well, man.
Never seen this.
And he's number 1.
He is number 1, and he is now 10 points ahead of second place, Twisted Whisker.
So what you're telling me is I've got to find a game like today.
Yeah, you do, because this week is Thanksgiving. I've already had 2 Thanksgivings, by the way. I did Friendsgiving on Saturday night. My buddy Brandon invited me over to his house. We did a Friendsgiving there, ate way too much food. Mm-hmm. He almost lit himself on fire We can tell you
while
about
he was
that story.
eating dinner.
No.
Oh,
This was
okay.
after.
Gotcha.
He poured gasoline on a fire pit.
Yeah,
it wasn't lit yet.
I can't really fuss at him.
Yeah, I mean, we've all done it, right? You pour a little gasoline on there. It wasn't a ton, and then he lit it with his cigar lighter, and then whoosh, like huge flame.
Yeah, it happens.
Huge flame.
I'm not gonna bash him for that.
You know what you know what I love about this challenge though, Cole, is Noel has been on such a heater all season long, and he's 10 points ahead of Twisted Whisker, 12 points ahead of John Dog. He could still lose this thing.
Ooh, you trying to put bad juju on?
No. I'm just saying, like we have like 10 points is not a comfortable lead. It's a good place to be, right? It's a good one.
I'd love to be there.
And trust me, Cole, as we get down to these last few weeks of the season, we will have Noel, Twisted Whisker, John Dog, T Ray, Reed Atkins, all those guys. We'll have people texting in asking who the Tolo right in front of them picked.
Yeah.
And they'll make their decision based on that pick.
Well, they should.
Which, it's a strategy. It's a strategy.
Oh, strategy, Cotton.
Yeah.
I've got to have, so basically what you're telling me is, since we're opening this thing up tomorrow.
Yes.
By
the way, we haven't revealed that yet. We
just said that.
No.
Oh, my bad.
No.
Let me hit the dump. I hit the dump button.
So there you go. That's worth.
I thought you said something about
the cat out of the bag.
That's my fault.
You let the cat out of the bag. All right. Since I started to go down that conversation, then I got distracted by second Thanksgivings and people lighting themselves on fire. No. So because Thursday and Friday, we're not going to be here. We are moving up the Upset Picks Challenge to tomorrow at 4:00. So pass it along to everybody or don't. I mean, you could just not tell people.
And I've got to get mine in tomorrow because I won't be here Wednesday.
That's right. You're running on limited opportunities. So we've got tomorrow and Wednesday as your 2 days that you can get your upset picks in.
That means Tuesday games count.
That means Tuesday games count. You got a couple more you can put in there. So that also means, and this is very, very important. I want all of you to pay close attention to the sound of my voice.
Lean in close.
If you send us a pick on Thursday and Friday, it will not count.
Oh.
Thursday and Friday picks. I'll say it louder for those in the back. Thursday and Friday picks will not count.
The only way.
Why? Because I am not going back to the text line on my vacation to get picks for people who didn't follow the rules.
The only way yours could count is if you put it on a note, hand deliver it to Diesel at 15 Abern. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You can't do that. Don't show up to Diesel's house on Thanksgiving with an ups. Who's at the door?
Not accepted.
Who's at the door, honey?
Unless you bring a dessert, in which case
John
we can talk.
With his upset, picking banana pudding and pecan pie. Hey, that's right. You can be bribed.
Yeah.
He can be bought for a pecan pie. Pecan pie. Pecan pie. So this is all of a sudden on Monday turn into like crap. We've got to find some games we like. We've got to start eyeballing these things.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. That's normally our Tuesday tradition is we look at games that we're interested in.
I'm going 20 plus. I've got to go 20 plus.
Really?
Yeah, I've got to. I mean, you got to go.
I can't let you beat me. And
I'm gonna
have right now, Cole, how many points does old Diesel have? I have 33 points. So you would have to take a 23 point or more. You'd have to take a 23 and a half point favorite if you wanted to pass me this week.
I'll find one. I promise I will. Don't challenge me with a good. I'll go 25. Heck, I'll find the biggest. No, I'm not going to.
I'll put the system on trial.
You know what? All kidding aside, I'm looking this week, and there aren't a lot of. I don't know if it's because it's rivalry week.
Yeah.
Just on Saturday alone, Diesel, there are not a lot of. Oh, those are a lot of Friday games. I'm sorry. Do you realize how many Friday games we have this week?
A ton, I'm sure.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
Yeesh.
13. One more? 14 Friday games on Black Friday. I didn't realize there were that many.
I didn't know you could count that high.
I didn't either.
Not without taking your shoes off.
I might go Michigan 21. Ohio State 21, baby. That's not enough.
Now, next year, you got a point there because they got that 5-star freshman coming in that they're going to pay $12 million.
They have the Barstool kid. Is that? Can we call him that?
I mean, we don't know who put all that money in there. Was it all Portnoy?
Nah,
I don't know.
It didn't. I think
Portnoy only pledged like $3 million, which is still a lot.
Yeah,
it's still a lot. But the dude's getting a $12 million bump. Now, this was great, Cole. I watched a clip of I believe it was Crane & Company, second mention for their show. Congratulations to them. They had on a quote-unquote Michigan insider, a Michigan expert, who said, all right, SEC, all you Southern boys, you've enjoyed having the best recruits, but guess what? All these Northern schools, they got all their ducks in the row. They got their NIL sections ready to go. They got all their big-time donors built up, and they got more money than anybody. They're about to come and buy up all your recruits. That's what this one Michigan insider said.
You believe that? Could happen, though.
I mean, it could. I mean, look, people up north think that we're just a bunch of, no barefoot, rednecks down here.
Well,
and that nobody
like
around here has any money.
Yeah.
Guess what? There's broke people up north. There's broke people down south. There's rich people up north. There's rich people down south.
It's just too cold to go barefoot. That's why that's the only reason they say anything.
There was a guy that I went to college with who used to walk around campus all year long. Didn't matter how much snow was on the ground in Boone. This dude walked around, no shoes, barefoot, sweatpants, a T-shirt, and a briefcase.
There's one of those on every campus.
Yeah.
Did he walk on like ropes in the afternoon?
I didn't see him doing the slack lining.
Well, he probably did it.
He probably did. I mean, that's just.
He had long hair?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, you can spot him from a mile away.
I mean, I'm telling you.
Probably still, you know what? He's probably a tenured professor by now.
There's one on every.
That's crazy.
I'm telling you. Every campus has one. It's like, why is this guy barefoot?
Is it a family thing? No, I think it's just drugs. I think when you're that high, you can't feel the cold on your feet.
Gosh, I'm looking for, like, currently, as you and I are discussing these upset picks, I am currently browsing for any 20-plus point spread games.
Justin L. said, I feel like I should have lost an extra point for picking Ball State last. Justin, that can be arranged if you want it to. We can take away an extra point if you want to.
I'm really eyeing Diesel tomorrow night. Let's go ahead and start this thing on a Tuesday. Kent State, Buffalo. Buffalo's favored by 21.5 points. It's in Buffalo, New York, so it's going to be cold. Might be snowing. I'm really Kent State hadn't won a game.
Kent State mascot is
golden something. Golden flames,
flashes. Is that right? Golden flashes.
Yeah,
Kent
sounds
State.
right. No, I think it is.
You don't want me to Google it, do you?
Golden Gophers.
It is. Well, their mascot's name is Flash.
Who's the Golden
Golden
Gophers?
Eagle? That's Minnesota.
Oh,
and they are the Golden Flashes. So look at you, Cole, knowing your mascots.
I just knew it was
your
something.
mascots.
Mascots. I like that. Something golden. Have you have any leans yet?
I haven't even looked.
My
to be
only
honest.
lean, Diesel, I thought about it driving in today. South Carolina, if I picked them as my upset pick. I mean, am I allowed to do that? 2.5 points. I know it's not going to win me any cheese or anything, but I feel good about that one. If you only wanted to be right, if you didn't care about points, I'd take South Carolina with my upset pick because it's a 2 right now. Oh, when are these locked in tomorrow at 3?
Yes, we'll lock these picks in tomorrow at 3:00.
3:00 tomorrow.
Saying it again, and we're gonna put it out there a couple more times just so that everybody knows. Because of Thanksgiving holiday, Cole and I will not be here Thursday or Friday. So any picks that come in Thursday or Friday will not count.
I'll tell you this. I think
will not count. We will not go back and look for them.
Sorry.
They will not
Tolos.
count. Thursday and Friday. A lot of Tolos wait until Friday to get their picks in. I think it's because they kind of want to eliminate a handful of the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night games.
Yeah.
And
percentages are higher.
Some Tolos like to just go ahead and get it out of the way.
So I think it's interesting that the lines will be locked tomorrow at 3. That's Tuesday at 3, Diesel, because I could be wrong here. I think we'll see a lot of movement on Clemson, South Carolina line. I really do. I think people will starting today. I think you'll see a lot of money come in on South Carolina. Currently, Clemson's favored by 2.5 points. But I'm telling you, I think by the end of the week, it could be closer to a pick 'em. I really do. I think more and more money will come in on South Carolina. I'm looking now, though. Rivalry week has some really interesting games, as always does. But there's not a ton of big point spreads out there.
Michael from Simpsonville says, I'm from Ohio, and there are more couches on front porches of double wides up there than down here.
Thank you, Michael, for sticking up for us Southerners with couches on our double wides. That was very nice of you to do that. Always Michael's the best, man. I'll tell you this. Let's go ahead and look at Maryland, Penn State, Diesel. Maryland is 4-7. They've won one game in the Big Ten. They're at Penn State. You know my my hate for the Nittany Lions, right? Penn State's favored by 25.5 points. Penn State, they've got to have one more letdown, right? They're not a good team. I've told you that. They're 4th as of today. Obviously, I don't know where they'll be tomorrow in the college football playoff rankings. But Maryland, Penn State's got my interest. It really does. Now, I'll tell you a serious one, a serious game I could look at would be Auburn, Alabama. Alabama, who just got upset by Oklahoma, is 11.5-point favorites over Auburn. I know Auburn's terrible. Auburn's 5-6 losing record. But to me, Diesel, that seems like a lot of points for a rivalry game, 11.5 points. I'm telling you, I'm not saying I'm picking that one, but 11.5 is too many. I would pick Auburn to cover.
Well, Auburn showed that they can go toe-to-toe with good football teams on Saturday, which was an instant classic football game.
Was it 4 overtimes?
Yeah. I mean, I don't like the rule there. I don't like the going for it from the two-point conversion play, but I get it. You know, you get to that point, you don't want these things turning into a 5-6 hour football game. Just go ahead and get it over with one play.
Yeah.
Winner take all.
Hey, your App State Mountaineers are 2.5-point underdogs.
That seems about right. On the road at Georgia Southern.
Yeah. 2.5 point.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern's good.
I was asked, I think Chris Phillips asked me if I wanted to take my own team, and I said, no, they've hurt me too many times. And then, by God, they actually get a big win.
I'll tell you this. I'm surprised that game, that point spread is as close as it. Texter says, look around Tulane, Memphis. He says Tulane, but I think he meant Tulane, right? He says, look around Tulane, Memphis. Are you asking us to look at that game specifically? I don't know, man. I might go a Friday night game just to have something to watch Friday. Maybe a little Boise State, Oregon State. Oregon State going to pull the upset over Boise State. I don't know. I've got to decide. Diesel, we've got to run. We have David Hood, tigernet.com. That's next. Such a fun day already. So much conversation to be had. The rest of the show. So glad you could be with us. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryce, and this is the Fan Upstate. On Mondays at 4:20, we bring in David Hood, TigerNet.com, senior writer, also votes for the Heisman Trophy winner every single year. David, we always appreciate you hopping on with us. Are you as excited for Saturday as we are? Because I said to open the show that this might be the most anticipated matchup we've had in a long, long time.
I mean, at least over, a little over a decade, and it should be fun. I do wish it was a little later in the day, just, to kind of give people time to get out there. It's supposed to be cold and give people time to tailgate and, maybe get lubed up a little bit and a little bit angry. But, regardless of the noon start time or not, it's going to be a fun day.
It's David Hood joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. David, obviously a weaker opponent last week. It allowed some guys to sit and get a little bit healthier. How healthy do you expect Clemson to be on Saturday? And is being banged up at a couple of key positions an acceptable or valid excuse if Clemson loses?
Yeah, well, you never use an excuse if you lose unless, somebody just absolutely blows something in a game. But I expect Clemson to probably be as healthy as they've been in 5 or 6 weeks. Brenning Stool, expect him to be back. R.J. Mickens, expect him to be back. Wade Woodaz will be back. I think Tristan Lee's going to play. Really, the only two questions that we have are Marcus Tate at left guard. I think that might be more later this week, game time. And DeMonte Capehart, the defensive tackle, I think, again, later this week, more game time. But everybody else should be ready to roll.
David, what was your reaction when you saw the line on ESPN.com that had Clemson favored by 2.5?
Yeah, I get it. Clemson's at home. You probably think maybe on a neutral field, South Carolina would be favored, by a point. If it was at Williams-Bryce, maybe you give Carolina a couple of points. And I think that just kind of shows Vegas thinks probably like I do that these are two teams that are, one's on a 3-game winning streak, one's on a 5-game winning streak. They're both playing well, probably fairly even in a lot of places. South Carolina's got the really, good defense. I was looking a little while ago. Clemson's offense is now at the 6th nationally in total offense. Both teams sometimes some issues on the other side of the ball. And, you kind of look at it and you go, yeah, maybe this is as even as they have been in a long time too.
David Hood of TigerNet on the Fan Upstate. David, I saw your post from a little bit earlier today about an event where Clemson fans can come get chicken sandwiches. I just wonder about the circular logic here. Should Clemson fans eat more chicken because it's taking chickens out of the food circulation, or should they eat no chicken at all in prep for this game? Because then you got more chicken inside you.
I think anytime you get free chicken, you eat it. It doesn't matter what's going on. Win, lose, or draw. If somebody says, here's a free, chicken sandwich, you take it.
David, when you look at this matchup, we talk about green flags, red flags a lot on the show. What would be one green flag you see for Clemson in terms of a matchup advantage you might like, but also one red flag, a concern that you have for Saturday?
Well, for Clemson, I love the way Cade Klubnik is playing right now and the wide receivers, and they were able to get in sync last week, and you're starting to get some of those guys back and feeling good. And I told somebody if Garrett Riley was to call the same game plan against South Carolina that he did against the Citadel, where you've got the end arounds and, the deep shots and a few of the kind of little plays that can kind of, slow a defense down, that they could have some success. And you look at Cade and some of the numbers he's put up, and he's, I got my Maxwell Award ballot yesterday. He's one of the 16 players on that one. I think that says a lot about how he's playing. And then, of course, the red flag is, Lenore Sellers. I think South Carolina's offense operates around him, and defenders kind of bounce off of him, and he gets out loose and he creates and can throw down the field, or he can take off and run. Clemson's run defense hasn't been very good. A lot of times it wasn't good against the Citadel. That was baffling because Dabo Swinney said earlier in the week, hey, we think the Citadel is probably going to have a lot of option principles. And they came out in some triple option principles. And, you think, okay, so now you're going to put a nose guard over the center, or you're going to run a 5-man front, or, maybe do a bare front or bring another linebacker in and put him in the box. And Clemson just never adjusted to that. And that just really was baffling to me at times.
Do you think, seeing those option principles, and I understand that the Lenore Sellers in South Carolina, they don't run the option. However, when you have to account for a quarterback with that kind of speed and the size, which is something a Citadel quarterback just doesn't have. He may have the speed, but not the size. Do you think that's going to help Clemson at all going into this game?
Well, I think if you're South Carolina, you don't do that, and they may watch the film and go, hey, we're going to put in a play or two here. Maybe if you have a third down play or a fourth down play and you work on something special. But I've been around college coaches for so long, and, their phrase is, we do what we do, and it's week 12 or game 12 of the season. And I think you're going to see South Carolina just kind of come out and do what they do, and you may see a surprise here and there, with that option kind of stuff.
David, I've had a lot of South Carolina fans ask me over the past few days, in my opinion, how do I think Clemson scores consistently enough on Saturday against that defense to win the game? I ask you the same question.
I think it's going to take them taking shots down the field. I think South Carolina can be vulnerable that way. You don't want Klubnik to stay in the pocket too long, but you have to ask yourself, the Texas A&M quarterback, he was dangerous, but I don't know that he was the arm talent type of dangerous that Klubnik is. And, when Clemson's kind of using him in the run game and you have to account for him and he can throw on the run and he can get out of the pocket, he's a difficult cat to kind of corral. And I think that's what Clemson's going to have to do. I think they're going to have to run Klubnik. I think he's going to have 60-plus yards on the ground and 200-plus through the air.
David, I saw your post over the weekend about the defensive recruit that flipped and is heading to Georgia Tech over NIL. And I think the difference you said was about $100,000 difference between the offer that he's getting from Georgia Tech versus the offer that he had from Clemson. I read the comment section. I read all the fans, kind of the circular logic. This proves that he's not the type of player that we want. David, I look at it, net result is you still don't have a player that you thought had a good chance of helping you win. That's why they were recruiting him in the first place. Does Clemson have a replacement for that player in the wings? Because if they do, maybe it's not the worst thing that he's heading down to Atlanta. But if now you're in a lurch, maybe it would have been wise to throw some more money at him.
Well, Clemson's not in a lurch. I mean, they've got Avion Terrell and Ashton Hampton and Jaden Lucas and a couple of guys that they've wanted to redshirt this year, Corey and Gibson. They've got guys there. And I think that was one of the things that Georgia Tech kind of promised Tay Harris was, we can build a defense around you next year. Clemson wasn't going to build a defense around Tay Harris next year. And he saw that. And the extra $100,000, you can't blame him. I mean, it's an extra $100,000. And, maybe, not being coached by Mike Reed, maybe you lose some on the back end. But I think that Clemson fans are going to see this turn into a positive, because the way that this recruiting class is turning out, it's going to force Dabo Swinney to use the transfer portal. And, we've heard for the past 2 or 3 years, well, they're going to use it. Oh, they're going to use it. And then they go get a Paul Tyson or, somebody like that. And you go, well, that was unsettling. Now, I do know for a fact that they've offered some guys. I talked to offensive linemen last year that they offered and would have loved to have brought in and loved to assign, but they went elsewhere. But I think you're going to see a more concerted effort this year to bring in a cornerback, to bring in a defensive end, to bring in a linebacker for depth. And then even more importantly, to bring in a quarterback, it would have to be somebody that's probably a freshman somewhere who understands. You come to Clemson, you get a bit of a payday right now. You're going to watch Cade and compete with Christopher Vizina next year. But I think Clemson's going to go into the portal for multiple players. I think it's kind of forcing the hand of the staff a little bit to use the portal. And, I had a very long conversation with somebody last night, and I was told Clemson's got the money to use in the portal, and they're going to do it.
David Hood, TigerNet.com, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. David, your thoughts on the new walk-on rule and how it will affect Clemson? Buddy of mine, his son is a walk-on there, and I know obviously that's going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah, Coach Sweeney, you love to have those guys out there that, could provide a lot of practice depth and good looks in practice. And he talked a lot about them in that post-game presser Saturday where he said, these are kids that we're going to miss. And, I think it kind of is to be determined how all of this is going to shake out. But, there's a lot of these kids that are just what you call good program kids. They're good kids to have around. I think he might have been talking, maybe it was Tristan Rigby, who anytime he's never made a road trip, but every time the Clemson Tigers come back from a road trip, he's there to greet the bus. And you have to have kids like that in your program. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out from kind of a leadership standpoint for a lot of these guys.
TigerNet.com is where you can find his work, talking to David Hood on the Fan Upstate. We've seen several SEC teams now hiring general managers. It looks like Georgia Tech is doing something similar to that. You tweeted a couple of hours ago that you expect Clemson to do the same. So what role and what niche would you expect whoever it is and exactly what title they give him to try to fill?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it would be, what the title would be, but I think you've got to have somebody to have that kind of NFL salary cap / GM role. And, I'm not sure what the title's going to be. I think Jordan Sorrells has that role right now. He's responsible for Clemson's budget for NIL and retention of players along with CD Davies. But, I wouldn't be shocked if, you hear tomorrow that maybe Clemson's added a couple of former NFL guys into roles there just to kind of oversee a lot of this and help with the transition. And, they have that Clemson Ventures that they've started. I think there's probably going to be an agent involved that can help with that part of it. It's going to be the new world of college football. You're going to see these teams. It's the professionalization of college athletics. I think everybody's going to do it. You're going to see the collectives start to go away. I think read today that South Florida has announced that theirs is ending. Clemson has the 110 Society. Is it going to be around past July? Probably not, unless it's in some other, form or iteration. So I think this is just the way it's all headed.
David, you mentioned Brenningstool being healthy, supposedly, allegedly. We don't know for sure yet, obviously, but you mentioned the possibility of his return Saturday. I think back to Clemson's success in the past years when they were winning national championships, and at critical moments, obviously they've had some good ones over the years, but they've had their tight ends come in clutch with some really big plays and some really big games. Does Saturday feel like a game where the tight end play may be a little underrated in your mind?
Yeah, because I think South Carolina is really good kind of on that first and second level, and where their suspect may be on that back end. And if you can kind of get, him in a mismatch with somebody, Brenningstool's dangerous. And then don't discount the kid that they absolutely love, Olsen Pat Henry. They like what he's going to do. I don't think we're going to see this weekend, but we saw him a little bit against the Citadel. He's a kid that's starting to come on, and they really love his athleticism. But yeah, that's going to be part of my prediction that, if you can kind of get Brenningstool loose and behind those linebackers, it's a little bit of a mismatch at places there. And that's why you got to like Cade Klubnik throwing the football right there.
David, before we let you run, I know you can't give your prediction as you'll do on TigerNet, but can you give us a tease? Can you give us a lean at all?
You know what? I think it's going to be a rock fight. I really do. I don't see one team blowing the other out. I'm with Vegas on this one. I think it's two very even teams. I think the crowd will play a big difference. Somebody asked me earlier, what do you think? And I'm like, this is a game where the little things are going to matter. Everybody loves the big play. The little things are going to matter in this one. Can you not turn it over? Can you not have a kick block? If you can do that, you're probably going to be the one. If you're going to be the one that does the little things better, you're probably going to be the one that wins.
He is David Hood of TigerNet, does absolutely fantastic work. Look him up on Twitter at @MDavidHood. We appreciate your time and, of course, looking forward to your coverage of Clemson, South Carolina 2024.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. When we come back, Cole, let's hit our daily wires. Good little housekeeping note. Twisted Whisker messaged in and said, Diesel, I picked Florida over Ole Miss last week, and you missed my pick. Well, Twisted Whisker, the machine is working. We're going to get that fixed for you. In case that ever happens, Tolos, you always just text in. Let us know that we may have made a mistake.
You missed
and
mine.
We'll go back and fix it.
You missed mine, too. I picked who was it? Who wasn't upset?
That one? Yeah, that big one. You picked the big one.
I couldn't even think of one to say. I picked that 25-point spread, Diesel. You missed it.
I understand. And speaking of which, wellness check. Can anybody do a wellness check on eThoughty and Amazon Guy? Neither of them got their pick in last week.
Man.
We're wondering why. Amazon Guy was up there at the tippy top. You jinxed him so much, Cole, that he didn't even send in a pick.
He quit.
How
the
about
challenge.
that? Here, Cole, is our opportunity to do a whip around the sports world. We call them our daily wires. Here's the buzz happening out there. The Carolina Panthers fell to the Kansas City Chiefs on a game-winning field goal, 30-27. Patrick Mahomes did what Patrick Mahomes does. He broke off a 33-yard run with 48 seconds left.
So good.
To set up a Spencer Schrader 31-yard field goal. Heartbreaker for the Carolina Panthers because you thought you had a chance to pull off that big-time upset.
And I know
it's best case scenario, right?
Yeah, we were going to talk about it at 3:45, but we got involved with conference talk. And Bryce Young, Diesel, we'll get back to it later in the show. He played really good.
This franchise absolutely gets moral victories right now.
Yeah.
So you get the moral victory of going toe-to-toe with KC. And it's not like KC played badly, right? You just played well enough to have a chance to beat them, but you still lost the game, which preserves your top 5, 6, 7, 8 pick
That
status.
was best case scenario.
Yeah, and look,
I hate to be that way, but
with the way Bryce Young looked, it is now a foregone conclusion that they'll go quarterback with their first pick. But what it does, Cole, is it gives you the best possible options.
He looked good, man.
Time.
He did. I have to give BY some credit.
But that's the only time in his career that he's looked that good.
That good, yeah.
Yeah,
good.
I mean, it took him. What week is this in the season?
14, maybe something
14,
like that.
And they've already had a bye, so it's taken them 29, 30, 31 games.
But you'll take it, though. You'll take it.
You'll take it, but you may draft anyway. Draft a quarterback anyway. Tonight on Monday Night Football, we got the 7-4 Ravens against the 7-3 Chargers.
Ooh.
We got the Harbaugh Bowl.
That's a good one.
Ravens favored by 2.5. Madcraft is already drinking somewhere.
I can tell with this conference conversation he was already in the booze, but I'll tell you, man, that's a good Monday night game. I'm a fan of that one. Sign me up.
Saquon Barkley is on pace, Cole, to break Eric Dickerson's single-season NFL rushing record.
Oh, man.
He rushed for a career-high 255 and 2 touchdowns in the Eagles' win over the Rams. Do you think there's people in the building in the New York Giants organization kicking themselves for letting that guy go?
He was so good last
He was wasted in New York.
Oh, my.
Wasted.
He was wasted. There's no doubt. But I'm telling you, man, what I saw last night or yesterday from him, he looks like he just looks like a generational type back. I'm telling you, maybe we haven't seen the best of Saquon Barkley.
And he's been in the league now for 6 years, 7 years, I think. Hadn't he been around for a little while?
Been 4 or 5 at least.
It just makes you sad. It makes you sad that the draft process is what it is, where the best players go to the worst teams. Mac Brown announced today, Cole, that he intends to return to North Carolina next season. That had been reported, but he actually said it himself today. Mac is 73 years old.
Return? What do you mean return?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Diesel, I'm not buying that.
College football here in the state of South Carolina. Some scores to go through for you. Clemson 51, Citadel 14. South Carolina 56, Wofford 12. Florida State 41, Charleston Southern 7. So congratulations to Florida State for getting your second win of the season.
Did you hear the commentator in that game after Florida State won, Diesel? It was the most ridiculous thing in the world. Here's what the play-by-play guy or the color man, one of them, had to say after Florida State beats Charleston Southern.
This is a step in the right direction. This is a football game they were supposed to win, and they've won it in a dominant fashion.
Are you kidding me? Right? Did you hear what he just said?
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
This is a step in the right direction. This is a football game they were supposed to win, and they've won it in a dominant fashion.
A step in the right direction.
You got a bunch of 5 stars, and you beat up on a bunch of no stars.
What
Congratulations.
on earth are you talking about, dude? a step in the right direction. My butt, man, you beat Charleston. They'd won one game.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Florida State had won one game too.
Well,
And looked incapable of winning. Winning is hard, Cole.
It is.
Georgia Southern 26, Coastal Carolina 6, and Mercer 49, Furman 23. So not the best weekend for football here in the state of South Carolina, especially at the FCS level. Rough go.
It was.
Unrelated, Cole, did you see what Eli Drinkwitz mouthed across the field to Mississippi State? I don't know. I couldn't tell where he was pointing.
I think it was, I don't know.
Was he pointing at the Mississippi State coaching staff? Was he pointing at a Mississippi State player? It was hard to tell. But with a minute-ish left on the clock, he mouthed the words at somebody, "Shut the bleep up or I'll score."
Yeah, and it wasn't like bleep.
Yeah, no, it was a four-letter word that starts with F. And he said, "Shut the bleep up, or I'll score," which would have been just running the score up because they had the game in hand with a minute
in Missouri. I
mean,
what the heck, man?
I texted a former colleague of ours, Will Pelagic, who had spent some time on the station. He's a Missouri grad, and I texted him that. He said, "Eli's an a-hole, but he's our a-hole."
That's right.
Florida has flipped 4-star Southern Cal linebacker commit Ty Jackson. He is the number 1 inside linebacker prospect, the number 54 overall. USC, Cole, we talked about this a little bit last week, has now lost 8 ESPN 300 prospects.
Woo.
Wow.
Boy.
That's not good.
How times have changed.
East Carolina will reportedly promote interim coach Blake Harrell to head coach. He is 4-0 since taking over on October 20th. Burns' season came to an end with a 37-17 loss at Spartanburg. You were on the call. They have finished the season 5-6.
It's over. Tough season, man. Real tough.
Most Valuable Promotions, who is the promoter that put on the Paul Tyson fight, has issued a statement denying rumors that the fight was fixed. They emphasized that it was a professional match sanctioned by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations. They said the statement refuted claims of restrictions on the fighters, which there was a rumored restriction that nobody could throw uppercuts in this fight. Let's see here, Cole. After Alabama fell off to Oklahoma, Ole Miss losing to Florida, and Texas A&M being defeated by Auburn, ESPN's Paul Feinbaum predicts that the SEC's hopes for multiple teams in the college football playoff have taken a big-time hit. He says only 3 SEC teams will make the cut. Last week, this time, Cole, we were talking about 5, maybe even 6 making the playoffs.
Odds, man. All right, it's time to overreact. Diesel Overreaction Monday. That's next. It is time to overreact. It's time to get whatever you have to get off your chest about what happened in the college football weekend. There were a lot of upsets, and I'm sure a lot of you who pulled for those teams are upset. So every Monday, 5 o'clock, Diesel and I overreact to what happened in college football, pro football, anything sports related. We overreact. You Tolos can overreact as well. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Phone lines are also open as we have one Tolo online already. 844-FAN-PHONE. 844-326-3663. Diesel and I both have some overreactions, but Diesel, I'll give you the floor and let you go first.
You know, Cole, I'm going to call out my own fan base here. I'm going to say that something has to be done, okay? Use AI, use triangulation, whatever you got to do, Cole, but video surveillance should be analyzed, and App State should be fined $1,000, and jail time should be sent out for every snowball throwing fan at Kid Brewer Stadium who threw a snowball at James Madison. It's not like, Cole, little kids dream of an opportunity to go outside and throw snowballs at each other. How dare somebody take fluffy white snow and chuck it at somebody when they have the opportunity?
Is this equivalent of throwing trash?
No, there's no evidence. It just melts. There's no evidence. There's video evidence.
But you don't like the snowballs.
I'm overreacting, Cole. It's ludicrous. I have read so many butt-hurt, pearl-clutching Karen James Madison so's and so's screaming that there should have been penalties inflicted, that they should take back the money that they raised for hurricane relief because somebody threw a snowball at somebody wearing pads and a helmet.
No ice.
And a helmet.
No ice in the snow.
I have no idea.
No yellow snow.
I don't know about that either. They're drunk college kids. You just don't know what they're up to. But Cole, I mean, come on. Like this is not Philadelphia where they throw batteries at people, right? It's a snowball. It's a snowball.
A snowball.
Don't you recall just last week, Thursday Night Football? Jameis Winston was out of his mind, so excited to go out and play in the snow.
He was.
And by the way, Harrisonburg, Virginia gets its fair share of snow. And I guarantee everybody loves being in a snowball fight at some point in your lives.
Yeah.
You look forward to the opportunity. I mean, come on, Cole. Am I wrong here?
No, I'm with you. I like the snowballs. I like the balls.
I haven't heard a peep from the university. I haven't heard a peep from the Sun Belt Conference. Nobody gives a rip about snowballs being thrown at players. It's not a great look, but it's not an actionable offense. It's not an actionable offense.
I'm with you. I have no pushback there. I have 4 or 5 overreactions as well. But before I give my first one, let's go and hear from Creed in Cowpens. Creed, what are you overreacting about on this Overreaction Monday?
I'm overreacting about something that does not matter. The AP Top 25 poll.
True.
How can Clemson and South Carolina be beside each other at 17-18, play basically the same team, sit on Wofford, win by basically the same score, yet Clemson jumps to 12 and South Carolina's mirrored down at 16? How does that happen?
Well, it happens, Creed, because South Carolina lost to Ole Miss early in the season, and they lost badly against Ole Miss. Yeah,
I'm sorry, you're going back in time here. Let me try it again. Last week, not 15 weeks ago, last week they were 17-18. How can they play the same game and not be 12 and 13?
Look, I know what you're saying, Creed. I know what you're saying. But this is my understanding or my guess at AP voters' logic here is that the wins and losses have to matter. And I fully agree with you.
Head to head, right?
That the head to head has to matter. That South Carolina is playing better football right now than Ole Miss.
100%.
But they looked at that week, 4-5 loss, saw that it was so ugly that they're like, well, we're just not willing to drop Ole Miss that far yet.
Did they look at that ugly Alabama this Saturday? Did they see that ugly? That was awful ugly. I don't understand that. And once again, that don't matter. Tomorrow night's the only thing that matters. But you said that some guy reported that SEC would only have 3 teams in it.
Paul Feinbaum.
When Vanderbilt beats Tennessee, when they beat Tennessee and Texas beat Texas A&M, well, that means they'll have 2. Will it just be Texas and Georgia? Is that it? Would you have 2 in there?
Creed, you bring up a good point, and you may have just tipped my hand for what my upset pick is going to be this week. I'm looking heavy at that A&M Texas game because Texas hadn't played anybody this year. They don't have a single top 25 win, and A&M, I mean, I know they lost, and it's embarrassing that they lost the way that they lost to Auburn, but it was a drop pass in the end zone that should have continued that game, right? So I'm not saying that A&M sucks.
No, Texas A&M can get them, absolutely, but 55-45, let's say Texas wins, but when Vanderbilt does get Tennessee, let's just say they do, because they can get them, then does that mean there's only 2 SEC? How can South Carolina not be the 3rd team?
No, I mean,
how could they not?
It's a good argument.
Losing to Vanderbilt could push Tennessee right there on the bubble and could push them all the way out. So,
hey, Creed, thanks for the call, man.
Good point, Creed.
844-FAN phone 844-326-3663. We have JD up next. Before we get to JD, I'll give my first one. I overreact by saying Prime and Colorado should be flat embarrassed for their loss to Kansas over the weekend. Here's Prime after the loss.
It's not one of you can say you played your best game. Nobody in here can say you gave the maximum effort. You gave it all you could. It's nobody. And you see the result. See, the problem is you got intoxicated with success. And success is intoxicating. You start believing what they're saying. You start listening more to what they're saying. You bought into all that foolishness that you were this, and you went out there and we got humbled. Coaches, players, everyone, we went out there and got humbled. But it is what it is. Where do you go from here? Where do you go from here? Where do you go from here? That's the critical thing. What do you do with this moment? What do you glean from this moment? What do you learn from this moment? Where do we go from here? Because this moment just ain't about football. It's about life. And this is a tremendous life lesson. Let's learn from it. Let's learn from it. And
Diesel, I like where Prime's going there.
That's a great point.
He does, but all of a sudden, Kansas is now what I thought they would be at the beginning of the season. Do you realize they've beaten 3 ranked opponents in a row in the past 3 weeks? Where's this come from?
Let's see where Kansas, I'm sure, very, very high on Kelly Ford's most deserving rankings. I know they won't come out for a couple more days.
Man, that's an embarrassing loss, Prime. You've got to look yourself in the mirror, man. That's embarrassing. I know Kansas is coming on late, but you're a little better team, man.
Programs have to go through this, though. They genuinely do. They have to go through growing pains like this.
All right, you and I have a few others, but let's give the Tolos the floor on this Overreaction Monday. We have JD up next, and then Rick. JD, you are in Wire to Wire. What is your overreaction?
My overreaction, Cole. First of all, thank you guys for taking my call. My overreaction, though, is can we stop it with this nonsense of rushing the field? I mean, holy Christ. We saw Arizona State rush the field the other night, and then the referees, kudos to the referees for putting that second back on the clock and giving BYU a chance to complete a Hail Mary that just came up 1 yard short. Holy gracious. Fans, you pay for tickets to your seat. You do not pay for an invitation to go onto the field. So can you please stop it? And then also, hey, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but old Shane Barrett, one of our good friends, he's known as the dump button. But that dump button just got played over that Deion Sanders that audio you had there. So yeah, my overreaction is that y'all dumped Shane, but y'all didn't dump Prime.
What did he say?
Be blessed.
What did Prime say?
What did he say? Did we miss something there?
Yeah, he said bull crap.
Really?
Well,
we missed
it.
JD.
Yeah, we're fired now. Thanks, JD.
Yeah. Sorry to point it out. That's my overreaction.
Yeah, thanks for that over the air.
Thank you,
oh, by the way, y'all missed the cuss word.
We missed that entirely.
Thanks, JD. I mean, God. I mean, just call us to the floor. Call us to the I'm surprised you and I usually will look at each other.
I didn't hear it.
I didn't either.
I didn't hear it.
Well, now JD and Rick will have to host the show because Diesel and I are fired. Rick, what's your overreaction?
Let me tell you, I'm sitting here crying in the car. I believe my Panthers have turned the corner. They're not they ain't been worth a clap all year. But do you think they're doing a little bit better? I mean, am I looking to the future too quickly? I'm sitting here crying because I love my Panthers, and am I overreacting?
Rick, they looked good yesterday, and Bryce Young looked good.
Sorry I called you a no-good midget, Bryce Young. You're doing a little bit better, okay?
Well, Rick, it's only one game, okay? I wouldn't go,
Yeah, but they've looked good the last 3 or 4 games.
They have. I'm excited. I hope Bryce Young proves us wrong, Rick. But you know what? Patrick Mahomes yesterday, Rick, did what Patrick Mahomes has done for a long, long time, and a lot of quarterbacks don't make those kind of plays with his legs, and Patrick McKenna, he just put the knife in your heart yesterday. But it was still a good game.
Yeah, he'll stub his toe somewhere this year, and he'll get hurt. He'll stub his toe, or he's injury prone. So I believe the Chiefs I believe my Panthers might make it in 2 or 3 years.
I like it, Rick.
Interesting.
I
Rick.
like
Good
the
call.
optimism. Diesel and I also have a few more overreactions, but the Tolos are lining up the phones today, and Madcraft wants to chime in. Madcraft, welcome in. What is your overreaction?
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
Your name?
I'm sick of the SEC bias. I'm sick of y'all. I'm sick of it all.
Oh, God.
And y'all know what I'm talking about.
Here we go.
Y'all know what I'm talking about.
What do you
What do you
now,
mean?
man.
I was pointing out SEC bias as early as 3:15, Madcraft.
I know, and I was agreeing with you. But Cole doesn't want to agree.
No, I'm not going to agree. The SEC's not. I mean, what am I agreeing to?
Madcraft, do you ever see?
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question.
Feel free to.
If Miami loses to 7-5 or 7-4, Georgia Tech, first loss of the season, they drop from 4 to 12. Alabama loses to 6-5 Oklahoma, their third loss of the season, second to an unranked opponent, and they drop from 7 to 13. You're telling me there's no bias among that?
I think there might be bias in the individuals who, have some affiliation to the SEC, but I also would ask you, do you not use the eye test and look at the conference and say that's the best conference in football?
Yeah, I've never debated that it wasn't the best. I've always said the SEC is the top of the totem pole. But what I'm suggesting is that most people consider the SEC at the top, and then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's everybody else. And that's really how it has been for the past decade. That's how it has been for the past decade. Let's just be real. It's been the SEC, but head and shoulders above everybody else. But now that we're seeing the true NIL portal and everything, we're actually seeing what's going to happen. And parity is now coming all across the nation, all across conferences.
That's true. I said that earlier. Yeah.
And I think the days of thinking that, a Louisville, an SMU, a Georgia Tech couldn't beat a Miami or an LSU or an Ole Miss or a Florida right now, I think that's crazy.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
See, I think that's crazy. I think it's ridiculous.
You think Louisville would beat who in the SEC?
I mean, I think they could beat LSU.
Whew.
Think they could beat A&M.
In what sport?
I think they could beat Bama.
That's great. You love the ACC, man. You love the ACC, but it's a garbage conference. I'm sorry.
It's not that I love the ACC. I'm just saying I'm sick and tired of the SEC thinking that they are the juggernaut that they are. They're not. But everybody keeps ranking them like they are. They aren't. Look, let me ask you one more question. If I was to ask you, they have to put one 3-loss team into the playoffs. Okay? All right, let me give you two options. You got 8-3 Alabama right now. Their 3 losses are to 6-5 Vanderbilt, 6-5 Oklahoma, and then Tennessee. Right? Okay. Now let me present to you 8-3 Duke, whose 3 losses are to 10-1 Miami, 10-1 SMU, and 7-4 Georgia Tech. Who should get in?
What were Duke's wins? Let's not talk about just the losses, Matt. Let's talk about the wins. Who'd they beat? Who'd they beat? Who'd
I don't
Duke
know.
beat?
I'd have to go back and look.
Nobody.
I'd have to go back and look.
Nobody.
Who's Bama beat?
I'm not saying Bama's the best. If I had to choose a 3-loss team, I'd choose South Carolina.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
The Gamecocks.
But at the same time, think about this. SMU and Miami have played more bowl-eligible teams, meaning the teams have won 6 or more games now, right? More bowl-eligible teams than Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Yep. The only 2 SEC teams that have more are Alabama and Texas.
Well, all I'm saying is I'm going to stick by it until I see change. Hey, but thanks for the call, man. Good to hear from you. All right, Diesel, you want to hear from the leprechaun of Lyman?
Of course.
Oh, this ought to be good. Leprechaun, you're in the Wire to Wire. What's up, man?
Hurry-ho to you boys! I'd like to overreact, but it's not quite time for that. But have you seen me Irish lately? We may be playing some lesser teams, but we've been beating their snot out. It's like Oprah is on our team. You get a loss, and you get a loss, and everyone gets a blowout. We're happy to be destroying them. It certainly is incredible. When you look at where we came from, these boys just look unstoppable. We've got USC this week, and we boys really need this win. Come on, fellas, pick them up too, and give me a big fat Irish grin. And when we've won and we're playoff bound, you'll hear my name once more, because I'll be praising those Irish boys from the grand old Notre Dame. Woo-hoo!
Oh my gosh!
I love how we can't even ask him questions. We can't even follow up because he always drops the call.
He just drops the
mic. Drops the call every time. Best uniforms of the week by far. The Notre Dame unis, the kind of flat blue
I agree with you. Yeah.
With the old, I don't even know what you call that font, but the numbers.
I like that.
The shiny gold numbers. That looks
I've
great.
always liked Notre Dame's uniform.
Of course,
it's
classic.
Classic, man.
It's vintage.
That's a great.
They don't need a logo on the side of the helmet. They don't need anything to tell you who it is. You just know.
Leprechaun, man, he's just an icon. I mean, that's a great call. All right, we've got time for one more. Diesel, do you think this will be the best for last?
Oh, hang on. Let me get a sip of water first.
No kidding. Tom in Somerville, what is your overreaction?
Hey, y'all been cracking me up all day, okay? We all know the SEC is the best conference in all of college sports. If you think otherwise, you're clueless, you're a hater, and, I don't care what you think because the SEC is the best conference in college football. It's been proven for the last 20 years. We can stop having that debate. Now, Diesel, stop trying to say Oregon cheated. They did not cheat. They out-coached Ryan Day. Plain and simple. It was not against the rules what they did at that time. It was pure and simple coaching. But I don't care about what happened in September because this week is the best week in all of college sports. And the South Carolina Gamecocks are going to, go right up into old little Death Valley and put an absolute beat down on the Clemson Tigers at noon on Saturday. It's not going to be a close game. It's not even going to be a competition. Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks are going to beat the living tar out of Clemson, and they will go to the college football playoff at 9-3 because they are in the best conference in football, and that is the SEC.
Hey, Tom. If Clemson fans eat a lot of chicken to get ready for the game, what do Gamecock fans eat to get ready for the game?
I can't answer that question on radio.
Jeez.
But I will say this. It don't matter. It don't matter because we're going to be feasting on Thursday and we're going to be feasting on Saturday. So, Diesel, to answer your question, PG, I'm going to say sacks. The Gamecocks are going to rack them up. They're going to rack them up. Get ready, Cade Klubnik, because you are about to see the best defense you will ever see, because you have not seen a defense that is even good enough. I'm going to stop right there to be on the same field with this South Carolina defense. You've beaten one bowl-eligible team all year. You suck, Clemson, and you're not beating South Carolina, and it's not even going to be close.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Can I stand?
Tell him Dylan Stewart's coming and hell's coming with him.
Standing ovation.
Wow, Tom.
I mean, the effort that Tom puts in.
How many Red Bulls has Tom had today?
Justin
6.
Justin on the Facebook stream says Tom is the freaking best. My word.
We hadn't really talked about this publicly on the show, Cole, but we're going to work on this probably for in a couple of weeks once the college football season is done. I think we should have one Tolo call in and call another Tolo to the mat.
Yeah.
So that we can have Tolo versus Tolo on Fridays.
Yes.
Fridays at 5:00.
Last
Tolo versus Tolo.
Last Friday.
So we're going to give in the future, we're going to start this in just a couple of weeks. So you will have the chance, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever we want to, what kind of clock we want to put on it, Cole.
Diesel, that last Friday with Tom and Dewey, that was all
Oh,
time.
no, Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Dewey. I played it for Ashley, and she busted out laughing.
It's just the
Couldn't
best, man.
breathe.
Our Tolo's the
listening to
best.
that
I
audio.
swear, y'all are the best.
When we come back, Cole, and we might need to get Tom back in on this. Rivalry Fuel, Cole. What actual events do you recall the most that have stoked the flames in your team's rivalries? Not just, I hate them because I hate them. You got to give me a real, actual reason. What did they ever do to you? Rivalry Fuel. That's next, right here on the Fan Upstate. So, Cole, we spent a lot of time earlier in the show talking about the SEC's preeminence over every other conference in college football. And again, I never denied that the SEC wasn't the best conference in college football, top to bottom. The point that I was trying to make earlier in the show is that the tippy top of the SEC, the teams that are in college football playoff contention this year, are not heads above everyone else.
Yeah.
Because Texas, they're 10-1, but they haven't beaten anybody good. They're 10-1 by virtue of playing a relatively weak schedule. And it's just the luck of the draw of the schedule that they got this year. That and the teams that were on their schedule that were supposed to be good weren't good. Clemson deals with that every single year, right? Like you have some preseason hype on some of these teams, and then they ultimately just don't stack up to what they were supposed to be. But Cole, one of my favorite things about the SEC is that basically every game is a rivalry game for some reason or another. Basically all of them are rivalry games. South Carolina has a true rivalry with Georgia fans because of proximity. You got a true rivalry with Florida fans because of proximity. So, Cole, now that we're leading up to rivalry week between Clemson and South Carolina, I want the Gamecock fans and the Tiger fans in our audience, and hey, Georgia Bulldog fans, if you want to jump in on this too, great. Go ahead.
Two of you.
But what actually fuels the rivalry for you? Because I love those little stories over the years that really forge a rivalry as being heated and hated and legit, right?
No, I absolutely love it's not good to say I love the hate, but the hate's what fuels the rivalries.
Yeah.
I think for me, November 20th, 2004 was what fueled the rivalry with Clemson and South Carolina when the brawl happened.
Brawl, yeah.
I was there, and I remember I was very young. I remember Lou Holtz and some of the South Carolina team, they before the game even started, Diesel, they were standing at the bottom of the hill. I remember it like it was 2004, but I remember it like it was yesterday. They were standing at the bottom of the hill, and from that very moment, man, that game, it was chippy. There was hate. Like they stood at the bottom of the hill. Think about that. That would never happen in 2024. Them coming all the way over
because they've learned.
Oh, they've learned,
and
learned
also
the lesson. It's almost like, why was that even allowed to happen? However, from that very moment, that game was chippy, and for me, that was one of those that just fueled it.
Well, Cole, I mean, you weren't there. I think you were on vacation that day. The day of the Carolina Panther Fan Fest, Rob and I were doing the show live from Clemson, ahead of Carolina Panther Fan Fest.
I was in Nicaragua. That's
and right. I believe it was J.C. Horn. It might have been Xavier Leggett, but I believe it was J.C. Horn who comes out, and there's nobody there. There are no fans in the stands at this point, I don't think. And he's rocking a South Carolina Gamecock shirt, and he is trotting around the sidelines, like cutting a ring around the sideline area, just proudly showing off his South Carolina Gamecock shirt, his undershirt that he was wearing under his pads that day. And those are the little slights, right? Those are the little you pick a fight here, you pick a little fight there that I love. These are the reasons why college, and that's the reason why the SEC again is the most heated conference in college football, is because everybody feels like every weekend is a rivalry game because everybody gets chippy with each other. You're always at each other's throats. And it's not just 1 week out of the year. That's the problem. If I could put a finger on an overarching problem with the ACC, nobody hates each other. Like Clemson and Florida State hate each other. That's real. J.C. Horn, thank you, Texter. Clemson and Florida State hate each other because they had the Bowden Bowls and they were going after each other for years. But like Clemson has no reason to hate Virginia Tech. You got no reason to hate Boston College. You want to beat them, and that's true, but you got no reason to hate them. And that's the biggest problem that I see out of the ACC. It's a collection of schools that have no rivalry and no proximity with each other. That's what makes that little triangle between Duke, North Carolina State, and North Carolina and Wake Forest so good, because you have that proximity, Cole.
And a lot of it has to do with the history as well. Like, Clemson, Florida State has some good history. Miami, Florida State has some good history. But a lot of that rich tradition and history is just in the SEC. I mean,
yeah.
You can even argue that Georgia's more of a rival to Clemson than a lot of the ACC schools are. So, I mean, there's just, and again, proximity, right? Not even an hour and a half down 85. But I just do think that those traditions are what makes college football so great. Yeah. I love the banner. Like, that is what makes college football, and especially Clemson, South Carolina, man. I was talking to somebody today on the phone. And we were talking about the rivalry, and they said, look, this rivalry in the it was a buddy of mine who lives in Charlotte. He's from Ohio. He just moved here 5 years ago, and he said, before I moved here, I didn't even know Clemson, South Carolina was a real rivalry. He said, I'd never heard of it. He said, when I moved to Charlotte, he found out how big the rivalry was. Again, he was from Ohio, so, it's Ohio State and Michigan. That's the rivalry. It just wasn't, Clemson, South Carolina, even though it's so big to us, it's not nationally known like other rivalries.
Buckeye Mike's starting a rivalry with everybody here. He says the only reason the SEC has done so well over the last 20 years is because all of us damn Yankees have moved down south. See, Buckeye, that's what I'm talking about, Buckeye Mike. No, so I brought up earlier the App State student body throwing snowballs at James Madison and throwing snowballs at their team. And that's rivalry fuel right there. We already had a little bit of a rivalry with James Madison. They came in as these smug, arrogant FCS powerhouse team, and they came in and were legitimately good for the first couple of seasons of them being in the conference. Cole, there's a rivalry between App State and Georgia Southern because years ago, App State beat Georgia Southern in a big game. We rushed the field, tore our goalpost down, and in trying to get them out of the stadium, they actually ran the goalpost. This is hundreds of kids carrying goalposts, ran them through the Georgia Southern team bus window.
Yeah.
You can't aim that. You can't make that happen. It just happened, and that's rivalry fuel.
Keith wants to chime in. Diesel on the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone, 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Keith, what's up?
Yeah, so about this rivalry, the Clemson, South Carolina rivalry, I actually had a buddy show me last night a video from ESPN, and it goes all the way back to South Carolina trying to block another school from being brought into the state altogether. And it went on to talk about that. And then went on to talk about it got so heated at one point a few years after the first game that Clemson had a group of cadets actually march into Columbia and was met by a militia, and they were full ready to go to war with each other over this rivalry.
Wow.
Because of a guy wearing a cartoon T-shirt of a gamecock stepping on a tiger in Clemson, and he got jumped. So I can't remember the name of the thing that he
They
showed
have
me.
T-shirts in the 1890s?
That's what the thing on ESPN said.
So the University of South Carolina attempted to block the establishment of a major university in Clemson, and then Clemson cadets literally marched with weapons into Columbia. Is that what you're saying?
It didn't say whether they had weapons or not, but they took a big group up into Columbia, and there was another big group in Columbia, and they met, and they were ready to go at it.
Wow.
Over the rivalry.
That's awesome, man.
Sounds like 5 points on a random Thursday night.
I mean, I was thinking the same thing.
Hey, thanks for the call, man. Great stuff. Really, that's really good information.
Can anybody confirm that?
I've heard that one other time.
I've never heard that story
I don't know
before.
if it's true, but I've heard it.
And I grew up, not as entrenched, but as a lot of you are.
Yeah.
But I mean, I grew up with a grandfather who played at Clemson, so I had never heard that story.
It's wild.
Never heard that story. Is that true?
71307 texters, let us know. Again, going back all the way to segment one, if you just tuned in, we were asking the question, how are you feeling, regardless of what side of the fan base you're on this weekend? Let us know what your thoughts are, what your early leans are, and we will get into what happened in the college football weekend. A lot of upsets. We'll rehash it next. What a weekend it was, Diesel, in the college football world. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 big-time upsets. The college football playoff tomorrow will look mighty different than it did last Tuesday. But the question is, how far will those teams fall? What will happen? As Oregon was 1, Ohio State was 2. They're safe, right? Texas was 3. Texas is safe. But of all of the college football upsets, I don't know which will impact our local teams more. But I'll tell you, man, the top 25 fell apart over the weekend, which we talked about it earlier, allows the conversation to be had, Diesel, about the winner of South Carolina Clemson potentially being on the bubble of the college football playoff.
Yeah, this is what Dabo Swinney had to say Saturday morning before the day of chaos happened.
You know, we basically have an SEC Big Ten Invitational. That's really what we got in college football. So you just got to focus on what you got.
Well, that's
got to focus on what you got.
I mean, the chaos that both Clemson and South Carolina needed absolutely unfolded. I mean, Clemson had no shot of working back up into the playoff conversation before all of that chaos in front of them happened.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, they've got a shot.
He got a shot.
And Dabo didn't know that Saturday morning, but he was.
So last week, Cole, I tweeted that ranking them. What did the playoff have them last year? 16, 17? Last week. 16, 17?
Who, Clemson?
Clemson and South Carolina?
Clemson was 17, South Carolina was
17, 18.
Yep.
And I tweeted that the playoff committee essentially shut the door on both of those teams as an at-large conversation. Now, it took a tremendous amount of chaos to get to where Clemson was up at number 12. Now, things could always happen, right? Remember, we talked last week about Tennessee being at 11, being on the bubble, and being jumped by a couple of teams below them who are going to AQ because of their conference or possible conference championships. But, you know, if the playoff committee has the same result that the AP did, and I genuinely don't think they'll rank South Carolina 16.
Yeah, I don't either.
They'll effectively shut the door on South Carolina's at large, because even beating a potentially number 11, 12, 13-ish Clemson is not enough for South Carolina unless another week of chaos ensues. And that is probably not going to happen twice.
Number 4, Penn State. Diesel, they almost lost. They beat Minnesota 26-25. You're talking about chaos. Things would have been crazy. Oklahoma beat Alabama 24-3. Obviously, we know Florida beat Ole Miss 24-17. Obviously, the Georgia Bulldogs had no problem over UMass. They rolled, and Tennessee.
Are we sure that was
Utah.
Actually Jalen Milroe in those pads?
It may not have been.
It didn't seem like the same Alabama teams showed up.
A&M, also a top team, lost to Auburn over the weekend, 43-41. Kansas defeated Colorado 37-21, a big upset there. A little bit of concern for Iowa State. Utah kept that game close. Diesel. That was only a 31-28 game. And then Mississippi State, Missouri for a little while, that was close, and then Missouri pulled away late. But all of the chaos aside, we know that Ole Miss, other teams that lost this weekend, are in trouble. And I wonder if we are still going to have the conversation next week after rivalry weekend, Diesel, that Lane Kiffin talked about late last week when it comes to avoiding the SEC title game.
I've talked to other coaches, so I'll just kind of give you the feeling from some other coaches that, you know, they don't want to be in it. You know, the risk to get a bye, the reward to get a bye versus the risk to get knocked out completely. I mean, that's a really big risk.
And we talked about that, right? We talked about that risk. And I agree with him. I mean, it's a huge risk. Now, Ole Miss might not be in that same situation today. I don't know, you know, with the loss to Florida, things might change.
I wonder, Cole, if a couple more years of chaos ensue, if Greg Sankey and the powers that be in the SEC don't look at that and say, you know what, maybe it's not in our best interest to have a conference championship game. You know, just go with the standings, right? Go with the seedings. And now it certainly makes things more difficult when you have a conference as big as the SEC is and as big as these major conferences are now. You don't have enough head-to-head for most of these teams to be able to form separation over the course of a season. So that certainly makes things more difficult, Cole. But I remember how this how major changes have happened in college football over the last couple of years. It's always the big conference does it first. Like one will be usually the SEC does it first, and then it trickles down. The Big Ten does it, the ACC does it, then Conference USA will do it, and the American Athletic Conference will do it. So the SEC was first to have a conference championship game and split into divisions and have a conference championship game, and then what if they're the first ones to say, you know what? It doesn't behoove us to even have a conference championship game, despite the money that we're leaving on the table by not having one.
Yeah.
And what if they started a chain reaction, Cole, of eliminating conference championship games?
It'd be interesting. And then we also talked about last week what it would look like if Indiana were to beat Ohio State. That didn't happen. 38-15. Kurt Cignetti was asked if Indiana should be in the college football playoff after a loss to Ohio State.
Is that a serious question?
Is that a serious question? Says Kurt. Very simple, plain and simple. Is that a serious question? Are
you sure about that, Clark?
I believe that was a loss that's probably going to have them on the bubble. Indiana now Diesel.
They're sitting at 10 in the AP.
And that's the bubble.
Yeah, and look, I think the College Football Playoff Committee will hammer Indiana. Yeah. And look, this was the opportunity to prove that a pretender is a pretender.
Sure.
Indiana could have proved that they were a contender.
They did.
Again, they could have lost that game by 10 points. I mean, they went up early, 7-0 early.
They did.
And then, God, things just fell apart for them.
Ohio State looked good, man.
They look good. So how much does the playoff committee want to punish Indiana?
Sure.
Essentially, let's be real, for being Indiana. Now, compare that. Indiana was at 5 when they played. They beat them 38-15. Compare that to the other ranked wins that Ohio State has this year. One of them, by the way. They beat Penn State 20-13. So you'd certainly say that Penn State is better than Indiana. I would say if those two teams played, you'd probably have a similar result as what happened between Ohio State and Indiana. The only other ranked team that they even played all year was number 3 Oregon at the time, and they lost that game.
Diesel, did you hear Urban Meyer in Columbus this weekend singing at dinner with a full band behind him? Have you heard this?
No.
That's Urban leading the
Wow,
charge.
he's got a decent voice.
Did you know he had the vocals?
I didn't.
I'm telling you, man, he can coach football, he can kick players in the NFL, and now he can sing. Texter says Indiana deserves to be punished for scheduling 3 cupcakes in their non-conference schedule. And
you realize the schedules are put together years in advance, right? Like I figured that was common knowledge that these schedules are put together years in advance.
They could have scheduled tougher then. You know,
why would they? They were fighting for bowl eligibility back then. They had a different coaching staff.
I don't know. I think
they just vastly outperformed any expectations.
No, they did. 100%.
Found themselves in the deep end of the swimming pool.
They did, and I think they're going to be, again, gut feeling. I think they're going to be sent back to the shallow end.
Interesting.
I really do.
Interesting. When we come back, Cole, we had a rousing conversation earlier about SEC dominance, at least this year. Is it a sham? Let's get back into that next. Little housekeeping note. We will start our week number 14 Upset Picks Challenge tomorrow at 4 o'clock. With it being a holiday, neither Cole or I will be here on Thursday or Friday. As such,
Turkey Day, baby.
this is very clear, as clear as I could say it. Picks that are texted in on Thursday and Friday will not be accepted. So you got to send them in tomorrow, starting at 4 o'clock, or on Wednesday throughout the entire show. What was that, Cole?
I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna eat on Thursday, but I have to find the correct clip I had up earlier. I lost it.
I'm hoping that
it was a great turkey gobble. I can't do
you
a
lost
good.
it.
Yeah, I lost it. I don't know what happened to it.
Man, I'm hoping that my parents have a ham because I've had so much turkey I can't stand anymore.
I'm having both.
I can't stand it.
I had a good turkey gobble.
Am
Can you
I
do
the
a
only
gobble?
one that thinks it's
That's good. That was a lot better than mine.
realistic, right? I think I
A
can just
lot
go out
better
in the
than mine.
woods and just
Yeah, they'd come in
Call 'em
running.
right to me.
They'd come running. I'm ready, man. I'm fired up.
We were out
have
playing
not-
golf last week, and there was a whole, what do you call it, a flock of
Flock of
turkeys?
turkey, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 8 or 9 of them running around.
Can you please send me the coordinates of where you played golf?
Preserve it for a day. It's like 3 miles.
They
from here.
need to get a hold of their turkey.
Yeah,
problem
well,
next spring.
turkeys are dangerous. Everybody
They
knows
are.
that 10 Americans per year, if only we had some like ASPCA music, 10 Americans per year are needlessly and senselessly attacked and pecked
And
by turkeys.
Just a infomercial preserve. I know a guy that can handle those for you next April. If you need them gone, exterminated, removed, I know a guy. Just saying.
Dan B asks, when should
Why-
the
what's your
lines
name?
get locked? Tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So we've just moved everything up by a day, and now you only have 2 days to get in your upset picks. Nate Ward said, so glad you mentioned the goalpost through the bus window. I was on that post and then in Duck Pond. Great times. Welcome to an App State Mountaineer.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah. So
That's pretty
that's not the
impressive.
only time that App State has stuck it to Georgia Southern. A couple of years before that, I think Georgia Southern had their post-game meal, which is a delivery of pizzas. Not the most like nutritious thing to eat after playing a football game,
Hey,
but
pizzas, yeah,
apparently students stole the pizzas and then like stomped them.
Oh,
Like, they couldn't eat them.
man.
You don't waste food.
That's a
but
crime.
It's rivalry fuel.
That's a crime, though, man. You don't do that to pizza.
We had a texter earlier, Cole. We were talking about Indiana's schedule and about them probably being punished by the CFP this week when the rankings come out. And he said Indiana deserves to be punished for scheduling 3 cupcakes in their non-conference schedule. And texter, I'm glad. I don't know you. I don't know your name. I don't know your affiliation and what school you're a
Religion.
fan of. But texter, he proves my point. He gives a fine example of my point. So this texter, whoever he is, whoever he's a fan of, is bashing Indiana for their strength of schedule in the non-conference.
Yeah.
South Carolina also played 3 cupcakes in their non-conference. They also played 3 cupcakes in their non-conference. Old Dominion 4-7, and they always suck. Akron 3-8, they always suck. Wofford 5-7.
Yeah. I guess the only difference
they've sucked
is
a long time. So Cole, this is the point that I've been making in the first segment or second segment of the show. This is the point that Madcraft has been putting up a good fight on in the comment section the whole show. There's a bias towards non-SEC teams that you don't apply to SEC teams when they do the exact same thing. And now you can argue all day that their regular season schedule, their conference schedule makes up for that. And that's fine. If you want to argue that point, you have a point there. But you're bashing Indiana for having a weak non-conference schedule when South Carolina also has a buns non-conference schedule.
But to be fair, I don't think they would be bashing Indiana for that non-conference schedule if they played in the tougher conference. So, I mean, yeah.
But don't you understand do you understand what circular logic means? You're convincing yourself and just coming right back to the point where you started, and you're learning literally nothing from it.
No. I'm saying that the SEC, again, because of the caliber of conference, who are you going to schedule in the offseason? I mean,
Schedule whoever you want. You can schedule top-level G5 teams if you want to. South Carolina has done that in the past, and it didn't work out for you very well. When Eli Drinkwitz came in with App State and beat your ass in your own house.
Texter says follow-up on Indiana, paid $1 million to drop the Louisville game from their schedule this season and replaced it with Western Illinois. This is not a present thing from the past. I didn't realize they dropped Louisville. Woo.
Is that so? I didn't know anything about that.
And what's the reason for that? I don't know why they did. I just say, look, I understand that South Carolina played 3 bad non-conferences, but everybody in the SEC plays Charleston Southerns, lower echelon.
But I thought you're the toughest I thought you're the toughest conference in America, and you shouldn't have to schedule 3 bad teams in the non-conference just to make sure that you become bowl eligible, right?
Well, again, it goes
South Carolina was scheduling Old Dominion, Akron, and Wofford because they wanted to get bowl eligible. Now they've turned out to have a much better season than anyone expected them to have, which is eerily similar to what happened with Indiana. Had a much better season than anyone expected them to have. So I'm just saying, if you're going to bash a Big Ten team for something, you have to bash SEC teams for doing the exact same thing. But you won't do it because you got this bias built up in your brain that won't allow it.
I think that's completely off. I think it's not.
How can you be so obtuse?
It's not obtuse. It's the fact that you're realizing that the SEC conference schedule. What? What? What's so hard about this?
You with I could say, Cole, this is a water bottle. It's got water in it. You would say, no, it's not. It's got 70% air in it.
That didn't make any sense.
Well, it does have 70% air in it because there's 25%
The SEC
water.
is the toughest conference when you play during
and
the
I have
course
not
of the
once
season.
said that it's not.
I know, but why would you go out and schedule 3? I mean, who will you schedule? So Indiana.
Pride to sell more tickets, to continue the prestige and build on the prestige that you already have.
I just think that is a terrible. I mean, Indiana played. Their schedule's terrible. You look at their schedule: FIU, Western, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland. What I'm saying is, if you play in a conference like theirs, just like the ACC, Diesel, what I'm trying to help you understand is you've got to elevate yourself, play better competition so that you do get the benefit of the doubt. They're not getting the benefit of the doubt because they played crap opponents. It's the same problem the ACC has. It's not just an Indiana thing. If they played tougher competition, they'd probably be in the playoff. But
Is that why the SEC regularly schedules a showdown with the SoCon in week number 14 of the season?
I don't know what the details are. I'm just telling you.
I get why they do it, because they want to have a guaranteed win on their schedule. So you play somebody that's ass so that it's easy for you to make sure you get to eligibility.
I think doesn't every conference do that though? Or is it just does the SEC the only conference that schedules bad teams?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
But you just said the SEC does it so they can get eligible. Everybody does it.
Yeah, so I equally bash every team for doing it.
I'm lost here. You play in such a tough conference, and you're saying that you can't schedule a Wofford or a Citadel or a whoever.
I've crapped on Clemson for its out of conference scheduling. Now they typically, they have a built-in SEC every year in South Carolina, and in years past, recently, the last 10 years or so, I think they've done a fairly good job scheduling tough out of conference opponents. Georgia, Texas A&M. I think LSU's on the schedule next year. I don't recall. Can anybody help me out? I don't recall Clemson ever scheduling a Big Ten or a Pac-12 school or a Big 12 school early in the season. They don't really do that. I get it. They want to play local teams that will get some more fan interest. I mean, Clemson needs to do it because they need the strength of schedule. They need to play.
That's the same reason Indiana needs to do it.
Well, Indiana needed to schedule wins so they could get bowl eligible.
But I don't know that 3 years ago, or whenever you schedule them, 3-4 years ago, I mean, 3 wins. They won 3 games the past 3 years. They needed 3 or 4 more cupcakes to get bowl eligible. If they won 3 games, I think they won 9 games the past 3 years. And then they won 10 games. This is the first time they've ever won 10 games.
And here we come back to an argument that we touched on earlier in the show, Cole, that these conferences have gotten so big that it's inevitable every year 1 or 2 teams, especially teams at the top, will get the easiest draw ever. It happened with Texas this year in conference play. I get it. They played Georgia and they lost, but They didn't play anybody else even inside the top 25 outside of playing Georgia. Now, it's luck of the draw. I'm sure there were all kinds of Oklahoma fans and A&M fans crying foul. Like, how is it that Texas gets the easiest conference schedule ever in their first year? I mean, hey, maybe somebody in Columbia or maybe somebody in Gainesville needs to start, putting a couple $1,000 cash in a McDonald's bag and sending it down to Grapevine, Texas, and saying, hey, could we get some of those, 5-5 teams? Can we get more of those Mississippi States and Vanderbilts on the schedule, please?
Sam wants to chime in, who happens to be an Indiana fan right here in the upstate. Sam, what's up, man?
What's up, guys? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Got you loud and clear.
I've been in the upstate a couple years now. Believe it or not, I'm one of the about a dozen Indiana football fans before this year. So I gotta hop on and defend my guys a little bit. Number one, the Louisville series was canceled by Tom Allen before Cignetti was hired. Sucks. We could have used that game, but Cignetti had nothing to do with it. And then beyond that, strength of schedules adjust every week. We're up to 51st overall now, which puts us ahead of Notre Dame, SMU, and Miami. I would also argue, what on earth has Miami done this year besides starting the year ranked, but better than us?
Yeah.
Grinded out wins versus much worse teams, while Indiana, except for the last 2 weeks, was just blowing people out.
Well, Sam, let me be very clear. I think the ACC's in the same spot. I think it's a lousy conference, top to bottom. All I'm saying is, all I'm trying to tell Diesel and anybody out there that disagrees, when you're in the SEC, you play such tough competition during the course of the year, you can rebound from a loss. When you play in the ACC, or if you're Indiana and you have one loss, you don't have any other games on the schedule to rebound. Does that make sense or no?
Sure, I hear you. But we're also a program that up until 7 months ago, I was waking up dreaming of going 6-6 every year. So right. So it's just a different world. But when you schedule these games 5 years out, yeah, I'm sure the way Cignetti's mentality is, I'm sure for down the road, he's looking to schedule bigger games, but he just got here and you just can't pick up games right away.
But y'all's logic, no. Y'all's logic, don't schedule tougher games if you're Indiana, right?
Sure.
Don't schedule them. Right. That's what, is that what y'all are saying?
Maybe. But I will say, in 2030, 2031, we've already got a home and home with Notre Dame coming. We got things in the pipeline. It was just Allen got scared of and was trying to save his behind and canceled the Louisville series that we really could have used this year.
You got an opening in 2025. You only have 3 non-conference games scheduled in 2025. You got to start sending some emails and making some phone calls and say, hey, you got to schedule somebody tough, please.
The way we're throwing money around to keep Cignetti, it looks we might be able to entice some folks. So we'll see. But no, I appreciate y'all. I just had to come in and defend my boys.
Thanks for
Sam.
calling in.
Appreciate you, man.
First time we've ever had you on the show. That's awesome. Thank you for the phone call.
I love it. Indiana fan. I didn't know we had any in the ups. He said 12.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Texters going at you. I can't read that
okay.
one text.
That's okay. I don't have a problem being right and having a bunch of what's yelling at me on the text line. That's totally fine. And again, you're yelling at the wrong thing, because I've never once said that the SEC is not the toughest conference in college football this year. I've never once said that. So you guys get butthurt about that all the time, all you want to. I don't care, because you're arguing the wrong point. The point that I made at 3:20 and the point that I'm making again right now is what?
Texters. He said, read it. I can't read the S word.
Yeah. That the dominance of the SEC this year doesn't mean what you think it means. 10-1 Texas doesn't mean what you think it means. Georgia has more top 25 wins. Georgia and Alabama have more top 25 wins than the rest of the conference combined. And both of those teams are hot and cold and hot and cold and hot and cold. That's the point I'm trying to make.
So what does that mean?
So you have the circular logic of, we're all so good that if we lose to a team that's not good, it doesn't matter because they're actually good. That's the logic that SEC homers throw around
But I'm not an SEC homer.
Every single time there's an upset win. The logic is, this Florida team that everybody's thought sucked all season long, all of a sudden they don't suck because they were able to beat Ole Miss.
It's just, to me, it's the eye test. It's just, they're so much better. The SEC's so much better than everybody.
So you're completely unwilling to even acknowledge that there is bias. And that's you can't.
No. I've never said
argue with somebody that
I've never said there's not bias. I'm saying if you watch the eye test, look at recruits, who gets the best players in the country. The SEC's the best. So if you're scheduling non-conference games, you don't have to schedule other tough teams like Ohio State's, because during the course of the season, if you lose one, you're going to have other games to bounce back. You can go beat a Georgia. You can go beat a Texas. Indiana, who do they have?
Would you say that Texas is not as good as their record would suggest they are?
They're not as good as their record suggests they are.
I mean, as a quality standpoint, eye test. Is Texas as good as their 10-1 record would suggest they are?
I would like to see them play in Oregon. I'd like to see them play in Ohio State.
Okay, but can you give me a yes or no?
I think they're as good as 10-1. I mean, they haven't tripped up but one time. Who'd they lose to? Georgia.
And they got their asses kicked by Georgia, by the way.
I just think
haven't played anybody else that has a remote chance based on talent level to do the same thing. Now, we're going to find out this week, and that's my early lean right now for my upset pick is A&M being pissed off over what happened at Auburn and then actually laying the wood on Texas.
Texter says Texas smokes Indiana by 20. Texter says the Leprechaun's coming for you in 2030, 31, Sam. Love the Leprechaun of Lyman.
Sam, call in more often, would you?
That's right. Texter says, has Indiana beat a team this season that has won a game against a ranked opponent? I don't think so. Again, I just think that their schedule is a victim of the previous coach, to Sam's point, which isn't – look, that's not Kurt Cignetti's fault. I'm not saying that.
They're out of conference sucks. They're out of conference sucks again next year and again in 2026. They don't play a team that I would even consider has a pulse until 2027. That's at Virginia. And that's not much of one, right?
Yeah.
It's not much of one. And then from there on out, they got 2 scheduled and they have 2 more available opportunities.
It's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like LeBron and Steph Curry and Michael Jordan. Like, how they always used to get all the calls and benefit of the doubt. Until those guys retire, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt, even if they're not good. I think the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt until they're proven otherwise. Until somebody takes them over and starts winning national championships like the SEC has, I think they might just continue to get it.
So does the SEC over the next 5 years, 5-10 years, whatever one you want to choose, that's fine. Over the next 5 to 10 years, how many national championships does a non-SEC team have to win to start changing your mind, like allowing a crack that the dominance is not what you think it is?
I'd say close to 50%. Yeah, close to 50%. Okay. Which could happen. Ohio State's won it. Let's see, Michigan last year, right?
Michigan very well could be good into the future with this number 1 quarterback in the class.
I'm just thinking, though, in terms of
Oregon
taking
doesn't seem
over.
like they're going anywhere either.
No, I don't think so. I just think in terms of taking it over. Michigan won it last year. Before that, it was Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Clemson. So the ACC won it in 18, or Clemson won it out of the ACC, rather. 16 as well. Ohio State in 14. Florida State in 13, Bama, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, LSU, Florida, Texas, who obviously wasn't in the SEC. But, you look at the past from now to 2000s, all the way dating back to 2006, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4 teams since 2006 out of the SEC that have won it. That aren't in the SEC. It's just, to me, when I watch the SEC, it's just about the eye test. I think they're just the best conference. And I'm not an SEC homer, but I do think that they're the hands down just deep, which allows them to schedule those cupcakes, as a lot of conferences do.
Texter says Diesel just mad that his team is the week 13 team everyone schedules for a tune-up before rivalry week. Interesting you mentioned that, Texter, because the last time App State played in a late season tune-up game before rivalry week at South Carolina, App State won. App State won.
Oh, how to break his heart.
Yeah, they won.
Broke his heart, rather. He broke his heart. David Hood, TigerNet.com, joins us every Monday. We'll talk a little Clemson Tiger football, preview the Palmetto Bowl next. Upstate on Mondays at 4:20. We bring in David Hood, TigerNet.com, senior writer, also votes for the Heisman Trophy winner every single year. David, we always appreciate you hopping on with us. Are you as excited for Saturday as we are? Because I said to open the show that this might be the most anticipated matchup we've had in a long, long time.
I mean, at least over, a little over a decade, and it should be fun. I do wish it was a little later in the day, just, to kind of give people time to get out there. It's supposed to be cold and give people time to tailgate and, maybe get lubed up a little bit and a little bit angry. But, regardless of the noon start time or not, it's going to be a fun day.
It's David Hood joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. David, obviously a weaker opponent last week. It allowed some guys to sit and get a little bit healthier. How healthy do you expect Clemson to be on Saturday? And is being banged up at a couple of key positions an acceptable or valid excuse if Clemson loses?
Yeah, well, you never use an excuse if you lose unless, somebody just absolutely blows something in a game. But I expect Clemson to probably be as healthy as they've been in 5 or 6 weeks. Brennan Stool, expect him to be back. R.J. Mickens, expect him to be back. Wade Woodaz will be back. I think Tristan Lee's going to play. Really, the only two questions that we have are Marcus Tate at left guard. I think that might be more later this week, game time. And DeMonte Capehart, the defensive tackle, I think, again, later this week, more game time. But everybody else should be ready to roll.
David, what was your reaction when you saw the line on ESPN.com that had Clemson favored by 2.5?
Yeah, I get it. Clemson's at home. You probably think maybe on a neutral field, South Carolina would be favored, by a point. If it was at Williams-Bryce, maybe you give Carolina a couple of points. And I think that just kind of shows Vegas thinks probably like I do that these are two teams that are, one's on a 3-game winning streak, one's on a 5-game winning streak. They're both playing well, probably fairly even in a lot of places. South Carolina's got the really, good defense. I was looking a little while ago. Clemson's offense is now at the 6th nationally in total offense. Both teams sometimes some issues on the other side of the ball. And, you kind of look at it and you go, yeah, maybe this is as even as they have been in a long time too.
It's David Hood of TigerNet on the Fan Upstate. David, I saw your post from a little bit earlier today about an event where Clemson fans can come get chicken sandwiches. I just wonder about the circular logic here. Should Clemson fans eat more chicken because it's taking chickens out of the food circulation, or should they eat no chicken at all in prep for this game? Because then you got more chicken inside you.
I think anytime you get free chicken, you eat it. It doesn't matter what's going on. Win, lose, or draw. If somebody says, here's a free, chicken sandwich, you take it.
David, when you look at this matchup, we talk about green flags, red flags a lot on the show. What would be one green flag you see for Clemson in terms of a matchup advantage you might like, but also one red flag, a concern that you have for Saturday?
Well, for Clemson, I love the way Cade Klubnik is playing right now and the wide receivers, and they were able to get in sync last week, and you're starting to get some of those guys back and feeling good. And I told somebody if Garrett Riley was to call the same game plan against South Carolina that he did against the Citadel, where you've got the end arounds and, the deep shots and a few of the kind of little plays that can kind of, slow a defense down, they could have some success. And you look at Cade and some of the numbers he's put up, and he's, I got my Maxwell Award ballot yesterday. He's one of the 16 players on that one. I think that says a lot about how he's playing. And then, of course, the red flag is, Lenore Sellers. I think South Carolina's offense operates around him, and defenders kind of bounce off of him, and he gets out loose and he creates and can throw down the field, or he can take off and run. Clemson's run defense hasn't been very good. A lot of times it wasn't good against the Citadel. That was baffling because Dabo Swinney said earlier in the week, hey, we think the Citadel is probably going to have a lot of option principles. And they came out in some triple option principles. And, you think, okay, so now you're going to put a nose guard over the center, or you're going to run a 5-man front, or, maybe do a bear front, or bring another linebacker in and put him in the box. And Clemson just never adjusted to that. And that just really was baffling to me at times.
Do you think, seeing those option principles, and I understand that the Lenore Sellers in South Carolina, they don't run the option. However, when you have to account for a quarterback with that kind of speed and the size, which is something a Citadel quarterback just doesn't have. He may have the speed, but not the size. Do you think that's going to help Clemson at all going into this game?
Well, I think if you're South Carolina, you don't do that, and they may watch the film and go, hey, we're going to put in a play or two here. Maybe if you have a third down play or a fourth down play and you work on something special. But I've been around college coaches for so long, and, their phrase is, we do what we do, and it's week 12 or game 12 of the season. And I think you're going to see South Carolina just kind of come out and do what they do, and you may see a surprise here and there, with that option kind of stuff.
David, I've had a lot of South Carolina fans ask me over the past few days, in my opinion, how do I think Clemson scores consistently enough on Saturday against that defense to win the game? I ask you the same question.
I think it's going to take them taking shots down the field. I think South Carolina can be vulnerable that way. You don't want Klubnik to stay in the pocket too long, but you have to ask yourself, the Texas A&M quarterback, he was dangerous, but I don't know that he was the arm talent type of dangerous that Klubnik is. And, when Clemson's kind of using him in the run game and you have to account for him and he can throw on the run and he can get out of the pocket, he's a difficult cat to kind of corral. And I think that's what Clemson's going to have to do. I think they're going to have to run Klubnik. I think he's going to have 60-plus yards on the ground and 200-plus through the air.
David, I saw your post over the weekend about the defensive recruit that flipped and is heading to Georgia Tech over NIL. And I think the difference you said was about $100,000 difference between the offer that he's getting from Georgia Tech versus the offer that he had from Clemson. I read the comments section. I read all the fans, kind of the circular logic. This proves that he's not the type of player that we want. David, I look at it, net result is you still don't have a player that you thought had a good chance of helping you win. That's why they were recruiting him in the first place. Does Clemson have a replacement for that player in the wings? Because if they do, maybe it's not the worst thing that he's heading down to Atlanta. But if now you're in a lurch, maybe it would have been wise to throw some more money at him.
Well, Clemson's not in a lurch. I mean, they've got Avion Terrell and Ashton Hampton and Jaden Lucas and a couple of guys that they've wanted to redshirt this year, Corey and Gibson. They've got guys there. And I think that was one of the things that Georgia Tech kind of promised Tay Harris was, we can build a defense around you next year. Clemson wasn't going to build a defense around Tay Harris next year. And he saw that. And the extra $100,000, you can't blame him. I mean, it's an extra $100,000. And, maybe, not being coached by Mike Reed, maybe you lose some on the back end. But I think that Clemson fans are going to see this turn into a positive, because the way that this recruiting class is turning out, it's going to force Dabo Swinney to use the transfer portal. And, we've heard for the past 2 or 3 years, well, they're going to use it. Oh, they're going to use it. And then they go get a Paul Tyson or, somebody like that. And you go, well, that was unsettling. Now, I do know for a fact that they've offered some guys. I talked to offensive linemen last year that they offered and would have loved to have brought in and loved to assign, but they went elsewhere. But I think you're going to see a more concerted effort this year to bring in a cornerback, to bring in a defensive end, to bring in a linebacker for depth. And then even more importantly, to bring in a quarterback, it would have to be somebody that's probably a freshman somewhere who understands. You come to Clemson, you get a bit of a payday right now. You're going to watch Cade and compete with Christopher Vizina next year. But I think Clemson's going to go into the portal for multiple players. I think it's kind of forcing the hand of the staff a little bit to use the portal. And, I had a very long conversation with somebody last night, and I was told Clemson's got the money to use in the portal, and they're going to do it.
David Hood, TigerNet.com, joining us right here on The Fan Upstate. David, your thoughts on the new walk-on rule and how it will affect Clemson? Buddy of mine, his son is a walk-on there, and I know obviously that's going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah, Coach Swinney loved to have those guys out there that, could provide a lot of practice depth and good looks in practice, and he talked a lot about them in that post-game presser Saturday where he said, these are kids that we're going to miss. And, I think it kind of is to be determined how all of this is going to shake out. But, there's a lot of these kids that are just what you call good program kids. They're good kids to have around. I think he might have been talking, maybe it was Tristan Rigby, who anytime, he's never made a road trip, but every time the Clemson Tigers come back from a road trip, he's there to greet the bus. And you have to have kids like that in your program. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out from kind of a leadership standpoint for a lot of these guys.
TigerNet.com is where you can find his work, talking to David Hood on the Fan Upstate. We've seen several SEC teams now hiring general managers. It looks like Georgia Tech is doing something similar to that. You tweeted a couple of hours ago that you expect Clemson to do the same. So what role and what niche would you expect whoever it is and exactly what title they give him to try to fill?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it would be, what the title would be, but I think you've got to have somebody to have that kind of NFL salary cap / GM role. And, I'm not sure what the title is going to be. I think Jordan Sorrells has that role right now. He's responsible for Clemson's budget for NIL and retention of players along with C.D. Davies. But, I wouldn't be shocked if, you hear tomorrow that maybe Clemson's added a couple of former NFL guys into roles there just to kind of oversee a lot of this and help with the transition. And, they have that Clemson Ventures that they've started. I think there's probably going to be an agent involved that can help with that part of it. It's going to be the new world of college football. You're going to see these teams. It's the professionalization of college athletics. I think everybody's going to do it. You're going to see the collectives start to go away. I think I read today that South Florida has announced that theirs is ending. Clemson has the 110 Society. Is it going to be around past July? Probably not, unless it's in some other, form or iteration. So I think this is just the way it's all headed.
David, you mentioned Brenningstool being healthy, supposedly, allegedly. We don't know for sure yet, obviously, but you mentioned the possibility of his return Saturday. I think back to Clemson's success in the past years when they were winning national championships, and at critical moments, obviously they've had some good ones over the years, but they've had their tight ends come in clutch with some really big plays and some really big games. Does Saturday feel like a game where the tight end play may be a little underrated in your mind?
Yeah, because I think South Carolina is really good kind of on that first and second level, and where they're suspect maybe on that back end. And if you can kind of get, him in a mismatch with somebody, Brenningstool's dangerous. And then don't discount the kid that they absolutely love, Olsen Pat Henry. They like what he's going to do. I don't think we're going to see this weekend, but we saw him a little bit against the Citadel. He's a kid that's starting to come on, and they really love his athleticism. But yeah, that's going to be part of my prediction that, if you can kind of get Brenningstool loose and behind those linebackers, it's a little bit of a mismatch at places there. And that's why you got to like Cade Klubnik throwing the football right there.
David, before we let you run, I know you can't give your prediction as you'll do on TigerNet, but can you give us a tease? Can you give us a lean at all?
You know what? I think it's going to be a rock fight. I really do. I don't see one team blowing the other out. I'm with Vegas on this one. I think it's two very even teams. I think the crowd will play a big difference. Somebody asked me earlier, what do you think? And I'm like, this is a game where the little things are going to matter. Everybody loves the big play. The little things are going to matter in this one. Can you not turn it over? Can you not have a kick block? If you can do that, you're probably going to be the one. If you're going to be the one that does the little things better, you're probably going to be the one that wins.
He is David Hood of TigerNet, does absolutely fantastic work. Look him up on Twitter at @MDavidHood. We appreciate your time and, of course, looking forward to your coverage of Clemson, South Carolina 2024.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. When we come back, Cole, let's hit our daily wires. Sports news never stops, Cole, so we revisit a segment we did earlier in the show, our Daily Wires.
Ho, ho, ho!
This is the buzz happening around the sports
There we go.
world.
You didn't call for your theme music.
And some new stuff as well, Cole. The number 2 UConn men's team lost to Memphis today in overtime in, I'm not even going to come close to this, Lahaina, Hawaii.
Lahaina.
Lahaina.
Is that right?
I think it's right. I had a friend who did radio in Hawaii, like recorded for a station in Hawaii.
Ooh.
He said that was the most pressure he ever had on him, because if you're not local, they know it and they hate you for it. They're like they don't. You don't even get credit for trying to pronounce a name correctly. If you pronounce it wrong, you lose all credibility.
I wouldn't even try.
The number 1 USC women's basketball team fell yesterday at number 5 UCLA 77-62. Not a close game for the Lady Gamecocks.
Burn it down. Shut it down. I mean, that's pitiful. How do you
Fired
lose?
on. What can you say?
I mean, hot seat.
Yeah. No legal action will be issued against Detroit Lions wide receiver Jamison Williams after his October 8th traffic stop, where he had a concealed weapon in the car. After reviewing a warrant request on a concealed weapons charge, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office concluded that the warrant was denied because the case law is silent regarding the specific issue and the legislative intent of the concealed pistol license statute that does not support charges under these facts.
When you're on winning teams, you don't have to comply.
Got off on a technicality. I don't know, what the exact situation was, but hey, the law specifically doesn't say anything about specifically what happened. So he was able to skate on that one. The Carolina Panthers fell yesterday to the Kansas City Chiefs on a game-winning field goal. Final score was 30-27.
Hey,
Patrick Mahomes just absolutely broke the Panthers' hearts with a 33-yard run with 48 seconds left to play to set up a Spencer Schrader 31-yard field goal.
Here's what Andy Reid said. Have you heard this yet? I like this. Asked about Bryce Young post-game. Here you go.
What do you think of Bryce Young's performance today?
They did a heck of a job, and then he's very talented, and the organization made a nice move by taking him.
The organization made a nice move by taking him, Diesel. He did a great. We can't criticize Bryce
anymore. What would you expect Andy Reid to say there? He sucks. Look, I know he sucked every game up to this game,
we
but
cannot criticize.
Maybe he sucks just a little bit less.
The Panthers, man, they made the right decision. Andy Reid said it.
Tonight on Monday Night Football, you got the Har Bowl. 7-4 Ravens at the 7-3 Chargers. Ravens are favored by 2.5.
I like the Chargers tonight.
You do?
Yeah, I think so. I'm telling you, man, Harbaugh has impressed me this year for whatever reason. I tell you, I go back to what we asked. Who was we had on? Brian Baldinger about the Chargers and asking him if this is years of success building or if it's simply the Harbaugh effect. And he said, yeah, it's the Harbaugh effect. I mean, he did. And I tell you what,
I think the Carolina Panthers reportedly might have had a shot at Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, my God.
Could you imagine?
That'd be great.
Could you imagine? Saquon Barkley rushed for a career-high 255 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Eagles' win over the Rams yesterday. He is on pace to break Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. Congratulations to Saquon.
He's probably the best in the game right now, and that's with Derrick Henry playing tonight. I may get pushback for that, but I'm telling you, man.
I'm fascinated that the running back position seems to be, in some small ways, starting to come back and be an important important position again.
It should have never been devalued in the first place.
I mean, could you imagine having an elite quarterback and an elite running back?
Yeah.
Just gives you so many more options instead of saying we're going to throw all of our money at a quarterback, not pay running backs anything.
And how much better does it make Jalen Hurts right now? I mean,
yeah,
they're a Super Bowl contender. Not because of Jalen Hurts, and that's no disrespect to him, but because of Saquon. I mean, I know they played for it a few years ago, but
well, you can
a real deal,
hide deficiencies a little bit better when you have talent that's spread out all over the field.
They got talent. They've got a lot of defense. I mean, I hate to say it because they're in the Cowboys division, but the Eagles are legit.
Speaking of talent, Mac Brown has announced today that he intends to return to UNC next season.
Why? I don't understand.
Just get out of the way, Mac.
What is? I thought he was quit. I thought he quit already.
No, early in the season after the James Madison loss, He said, if you guys don't believe that I can do this anymore, I'll leave.
Well, he should have. I mean, why?
Well, I guess the team believed in him.
Why does North Carolina have such low expectations?
Low standards.
Mac used to be great, but Mac's turned into a Big Mac. I mean, that's all he is now.
Mac's task should have been come back for 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And kind of get this thing pointed back in the right direction.
And then we're going to
make it attractive for the next long-term candidate who could potentially be here for a decade.
But he's 73 years old.
73. Like, how do 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids relate to a 73-year-old
They
man?
don't.
They
There's
don't
no
care
way.
that you won at Texas in the early 2000s.
No.
They don't
And
care.
I hate to say that because he used to be really good. He was elite, but those days are long gone, man.
In recruiting news, the Florida Gators have flipped a 4-star linebacker commit from Southern Cal named Ty Jackson. He's the number 1 inside linebacker prospect and the number 54 prospect overall. Southern Cal has now lost 8 ESPN 300 prospects to decommitment.
That's not
Man,
good.
that's tough.
And by the way, going back to Mac, he is the oldest active coach in football. Behind or right above Kirk, is it Ferentz? Is that how you say it? Ferentz at Iowa.
Ferentz.
He's
He's never going anywhere.
Well, he's 69, and Don Brown at UMass is 69. The next, Mac Brown, 73.
East Carolina has reportedly announced that they're going to promote interim Blake Harrell to head coach. He's 4-0 since taking over on October 20th. Thank God that he took over on October 20th and not September 20th, because my App State Mountaineers would have been in trouble against them. Burns' season came to an end on Friday night. Sad for them. 37-17 loss at Spartanburg. And finally, MVP Promotions issued a statement denying rumors that the Tyson Paul fight was fixed, emphasizing that it was a professional match sanctioned by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations.
I hope Rob Brown don't hear that. He will go nuts. Sorry, Rob. Hey, Upset Picks opens tomorrow. Tolos, we'll see you then.